This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by. This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority.
It's because I'm not sitting next to you.
It's a great start. Forgive me. The London Assembly is the voice of London, composed of 25 members elected at the same time as the Mayor of London, in order to hold him to account and scrutinise his policies. Can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the gallery or watching on the webcast. This is the Mayor's question time meeting of the Assembly, which means that all members are invited to attend and ask questions of the Mayor. Now, in case of an emergency or any need to exit the building, guests are seated in the public gallery should follow the security staff and Assembly members should follow the meeting clerk. Members are reminded that any electronic devices should not be placed in front of microphones, which must be turned on to speak and turned off once finished. A good reminder for me. Can I now ask the clerk to confirm any apologies for absence?
No apologies for absence today, Chair.
OK, before we begin today, on behalf of the Assembly, I'd like to offer condolences to the family, friends and colleagues of the London Fire Brigade firefighter who sadly died while fighting a fire in Oxfordshire last week. I think it's a good time to pause and reflect about those public servants who put themselves in danger to protect us against the different challenges that they face in carrying out their jobs on our behalf. Now, since we last met during the previous term of Mayor's Question Time in March, Assembly members focused on publications of reports from investigations undertaken by committees. The Budget and Performance Committee wrote to the Mayor with recommendations to improve the future of the budget setting process. The Environment Committee published its report on community food growing in London. The Police and Crime Committee published a report on public order policing in London and with a particular focus on protests and the Notting Hill Carnival. It also published its report exploring the impact of violence against women and girls on young people. The Health Committee published its reports reviewing end-of-life care in London, and it also published its important report in Getting to Zero by 2030 HIV in London. The Planning and Regeneration Committee published a letter calling on the Mayor of London to provide more detail on his plans to pedestrianise Oxford Street. It also published its reports on tall residential buildings in London. The Economy and Culture and Skills Committee published reports on its London high streets, and it also published a report highlighting the difficulties of care experience young people face when seeking employment, training or education. The committee also wrote letters to the Mayor with recommendations on major sports events in London and on broadband connectivity. There was also a very special event. The former Assembly Chair, Assembly Member Boff, and the London Youth Assembly jointly hosted an inaugural London Youth Achievement Awards. The event recognised and celebrated the impact of young Londoners in our capital. And this week, just to make sure that we're all up to date with the Assembly activities, the Police and Crime Committee met for a question and answer session with the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime. And finally, the London Assembly annual meeting on the 6th of May signalled the start of our 25th anniversary year, and we were fortunate to have a couple of guest speakers to address us. I would like to extend my thanks to the Chair of the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee, the former London Assembly member Florence Ashalomi, MP, as well as Ross Lydall, City Hall Editor of The Standard. They both had some very interesting observations and reflections, which I'm sure you'll agree has given us some food for thought for the next 25 years. And now can I move on to item 2 on our agenda, declarations of interest. Can I ask Assembly members to note the interest set out in item 2? Now, do Assembly members have any other disposable pecuniary interests which relate to items on the agenda for today's meeting, or any other relevant interest, including any declarations in relation to gifts, hospitalities, which are not reflected on the authority's register of gifts or hospitalities? Assembly Member Roberts.
My usual declaration as a member of the Trustee Board of the Royal Parks, Chair.
Thank you. Any others? OK, we move on to item 3. Can I ask the Assembly to formally receive the Mayor's report covering the period for the 7th of March to the 8th of May 2025? The Mayor will now provide an oral update of up to 5 minutes in length on matters occurring since the publication of his report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure members will agree there's really only one place to start, and that's by celebrating the triumphs of two of London's football clubs, Crystal Palace and Tottenham Hotspur. I want to congratulate Steve Parish, Oliver Glasner, and all the players and staff at Crystal Palace on their heroic, history-making victory over Manchester City in the FA Cup at Wembley on Saturday. The Eagles did South London proud, and the whole team deserves not only immense credit, but their place in the record book. So congratulations once again to Crystal Palace and everyone associated with the club on winning their first major trophy and making their fans feel glad all over. And congratulations to Daniel Levy, Ange Postecoglou and all the Spurs players, staff and fans on their Europa League success last night. It's good to see North London and South London doing so well. I think that's London to Manchester 0.
London to Lancashire 0, I think.
In more good news for Crystal Palace, I'm pleased to announce today that Morgan Sindel Construction has been appointed to deliver the state-of-the-art redevelopment of Crystal Palace National Sports Centre. This is an incredibly exciting, once-in-a-generation transformation that will include a massive refurbishment of the 50-metre swimming and diving pools and huge improvements to the indoor facilities, outdoor pitches and athletics stadium. The pre-construction period will begin immediately before major works commence in the second half of next year, with a target of 2028 for completion. As Mayor, I'm proud that City Hall has been able to contribute millions of pounds in investment to enhance the Crystal Palace National Sports Centre and make it more sustainable. Once finished, this promises not only to be a world-class facility and a vital asset for the local community, but a springboard for so many young South Londoners who can dream of becoming Olympic athletes, like previous runners on the track, Steve Ovett and Seb Coe, or following in the footsteps of FA Cup winner Eberechi Eze. It's all part of our efforts to build a better, fairer, healthier London for everyone. Chair, we've released fantastic images of the newly designed sports centre today, which illustrate just how impressive and cutting-edge Crystal Palace will be. I've been asked for 4 separate oral updates before I get to MQT's Chair, which I'll move on to swiftly. The first one is on the Supreme Court ruling from Senator Caroline Russell. I've always been proud of London's status as a beacon for openness, equality and LGBTQ+ rights, and I'm determined that this remains the case. Over recent years, the political debate has intensified, but we must remember when we talk about these issues that trans and non-binary Londoners are some of the most marginalised and vulnerable in our city. Understandably, many trans Londoners and others in the LGBTQ+ community are now anxious about what the Supreme Court ruling will mean for them. It's welcome that the Equality and Human Rights Commission is now running a proper consultation on its interpretation of the Supreme Court ruling. But my position is clear. The result of this ruling must not mean more stigma and discrimination against trans people in London. And as Mayor, I'll continue to stand up for trans Londoners and the rights of the most vulnerable people in our society. And I'll continue to work to stamp out transphobia, homophobia and bigotry in all its forms. Chair, the second question is on the TfL power outage from Assembly Member Ellie Baker. Fortunately, there is a high level of resilience in power supply to the TfL network. TfL has a robust contingency plans which worked as planned. On Monday the 12th of May, due to a brief interruption of the power supply from the national grid, for a short period, power was lost to 5 tube lines and the central section of the Elizabeth line. For safety reasons, around 17 stations closed due to the disruption. 4 of the 5 tube lines and the Elizabeth line were quickly returned to service, and the 5th, the Bakerloo line, returned to service 6 hours later after additional inspections. TfL is supporting investigations into the incidents and will provide further information in due course. The third request for an oral update, Chair, is from Assembly Member Bukhari on the PM's comments on immigration. I want to start by saying that generations of immigrants have helped to create the city and country we live in today and love. Of course, we need to have secure borders and the right immigration policies in place, but as I've said many times as Mayor, we must also not be afraid to talk about the benefits of immigration. Because the truth is people who come here from across the world make such a vital contribution culturally, economically and socially, whether in social care, the NHS, finance, cultural sectors or hospitality. Migration is central to our city's economy and prosperity. And I'll always be proud of what makes London so special, our diversity, and the fact we don't just tolerate our differences, we celebrate them. And the fourth question, Chair, is on the UK-EU summit from Assembly Member Clark. The UK government's historic deal with the EU resets our relationship with our biggest trading partner and builds on the work the government's doing to repair the economy, including landmark deals, trade deals with the US and India. The measures in this deal will be good for jobs, good for our bills and good for our borders, and will help deliver growth in London and across the UK. I'm delighted the government and the EU have agreed in principle to deliver a new mobility scheme for young people. This is good news for businesses with hard-to-fill vacancies and young Londoners and Europeans seeking to broaden their horizons. Brexit has dragged our economy down and pushed up the cost of living, but this deal will undo some of the damage it has caused. I hope it's a springboard for further deals and closer alignment in other key sectors for the capital, such as financial services and creative industries.
Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, it was good to hear your solidarity with trans Londoners. Trans, intersex and non-binary Londoners have been through a completely hellish period since the Supreme Court ruling, with huge amounts of uncertainty and have been part of a national discourse that has been, frankly, humiliating, discriminatory and just deeply unpleasant. So it is very important that you, as Mayor, show your allyship, and I'm hoping that going forward, and I'd like your confirmation of this, that you will use your leadership to frame that discussion, to frame everything that is going on in a way that sets a tone of kindness, care and love that provides no place for those who are seeking to damage the hard-won social inclusion and the hard-won years, decades of achievements in equality more generally. So will you use your voice?
Chair, can I thank the member for her question and the way she articulated her question. I think there are strong views on all sides. It's important that we treat everyone with respect, dignity, and particularly when it comes to the trans community, we should ensure they're protected from discrimination. And as long as I'm Mayor, I'll continue to do that.
Thank you. I'm not sure both sides is a useful frame, but thank you.
I use the phrase all sides.
Assembly Member Bakari.
Thank you, and congratulations to our new chair. Mr Mayor, do you think the language that the Prime Minister used at migration was a squalid chapter was dangerous or not?
Well, I've been consistent on this issue. I remember during the time of the Conservative and Lib Dem coalition government, vans going around diverse parts of our city. The
question was that do you think the Prime Minister's language was dangerous or not?
Saying go home. And I'm consistent, unlike others, because of my personal ambitions. I don't keep quiet to become a councillor, a member of the Assembly or a member of Parliament. I speak out whether it's Labour government.
I'd like to get an answer, but if you can't answer if the language was dangerous or not from the Prime Minister, I'd really appreciate that, but I don't think I'm going to get a clear answer from him. Thank you.
Assembly Member Baker.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly on the TfL disruption on the 12th of May, follow up on the power outage. Many passengers were caught up in the disruption, and we have had complaints effectively saying the communication wasn't as good as it could have been. Would you ask TfL to review what could have been done better and come back to us on that?
Well, first, can I apologise to every commuter affected by this disruption of power. TfL, there's an investigation taking place and all lessons that can be learned will be learned. A very basic thing that should be able to happen is good comms, and so that's one of the things I'm sure that the investigation will be looking into.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
OK, I see no other members who want to come in on this section, so let's move to the questions. And the first question from the Green Party is Assembly Member Caroline Russell.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry.
First question from Assembly Member Bakari.
Oh, sorry, apologies. So it's Assembly Member Bakari is the first question.
Thank you. Chair, can I begin by giving my condolences to the friends and family of London Fire Brigade firefighter Martin Sadler, who tragically lost his life in Oxfordshire in the line of duty. It's a reminder and a sober reminder to all of us that our blue light services, including firefighters, run towards danger, encouraging the rest of us to run towards safety. And it's very important we are conscious of that in the context of the conversations we have, whether it's the fire service, the police service, or other blue light services. Under the current London Fire Commissioner, Andy Rowe, London Fire Brigade has made significant progress in ensuring firefighters are better prepared, better trained and better equipped to respond to fires and emergencies in London. I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to Andy for his unwavering dedication to keeping Londoners safe. I'm delighted to propose the appointment of Jonathan Smith as the new London Fire Commissioner, and have every confidence he can build on Andy's success. If approved in a confirmation hearing of the London Assembly's Fire Committee, John is expected to take up the post as Commissioner on the 1st of July. As Commissioner, John Smith will be responsible for the delivery of the Community Risk Management Plan, CRMP, which sets out clear targets on how the Brigade will deliver its service to London up to 2029. He'll need to continue to deliver upon the Grenfell Tower inquiry recommendation, something that he's been at the forefront of in his current position, having overhauled many key procedures and practices at the Brigade for the better. I expect the new Commissioner to build on the LFB's most recent HMIFRS inspection report from November 2024, which acknowledged the extensive progress LFB has made in improving its services in London, as well as positive cultural change. I will also expect him to continue to drive this cultural change and the wider modernisation and professionalism of LFB, and I know he will work with communities across London, as well as with colleagues within the LFB to achieve this. While the HMI report recognised the significant steps since the publication of the 2022 Independent Culture Review of LFB, fully delivering on this change will take time, and the new Commissioner's leadership will be key to its success. At a time when Londoners and LFB are facing new and growing challenges, from lithium-ion battery fires to wildfires, the new Commission will also need to ensure that the Brigade's resources are set up to respond to this changing environment in the most effective way possible. In the context of a challenging financial climate, the new London Fire Commissioner will also need to continue to make progress towards a balanced budget in 2025-2026 while protecting frontline services. To support the Brigade, I've provided an additional £20.5 million for the fire service in my final budget of 2025-2026.
As outgoing chair of Fire Committee, I led a cross-party investigation called Action and Ambition for Cultural Change. We heard from firefighters who shared some really harrowing stories of racism and misogyny, and the outgoing Commissioner Andy Rowe did say that cultural change was a key pillar, but rhetoric is not reform. Progress on tackling racism and misogyny and recruiting a diverse workforce has been painfully slow. Do you agree?
Well, it's because of the reasons my concerns around culture in the fire service. We asked Nazir Afzal to undertake his independent report into the fire service. The Commissioner, Andy Rowe, deserves huge credit for responding to those recommendations. Additionally, the Commissioner has been really keen to act on some of the feelings and findings of the Grenfell Tower inquiry. That community gave personal experiences of their lived experience of the fire service on that awful night in June 2017, and the fire service has been responding. I'm really proud. We're the only fire service in the country with a professional standards unit. I'm really proud. Other fire services are now coming to the LFB for advice in relation to how we are changing the culture in the fire service, but it is not mission accomplished. The cultural change doesn't happen overnight, but I'm confident with the new PSU, but also with the Independent Advisory Panel and Community Forum and a new Commissioner, we can make further progress.
Thank you. And you refer to the PSU, a newly established PSU, which is we found to be slow, under-resourced and lacked real independence. And the LFB seems to be marking its own homework. So do you agree that the new Commissioner must make the PSU completely independent of an internal chain of command?
Well, it's a professional standard unit within the London Fire Brigade. There is an independent advisory panel and community forum who provide scrutiny of its cultural change. But even the Fire Committee's report said it's only recently been established, and I quote, still required time to fully develop.
We continue to push for the independence of the PSC, and I do want to talk about public awareness of lithium-ion batteries as well. In April, I met the LFB and TfL to discuss an idea, and it's a really good Lib Dem idea that I want you to steal. TfL advertises the e-scooters and non-folding e-bikes are banned on TfL services. My idea is to include a QR code on these posters that links it to the established Charge Safe campaign, and this would inform public of the risks posed by some e-bikes and conversion kits. It's a simple change that would save dozens of lives. TfL and the LFB were actually quite positive about this idea. Will you direct the new Commissioner to work alongside TfL to make the Charge Safe QR code a reality?
Chair, let me be quite clear. I don't disregard any ideas because they come from a political party. All good ideas are looked at, and I'll ensure that the fire service and TfL look at this idea as well.
Okay, let's move on to the next question on the new London plan. Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you for this question. The delivery of sustainable economic growth is one of my two overriding objectives for the next London plan, alongside the need to deliver homes for Londoners. This must be allied with ensuring a fairer and greener city for Londoners. I recently launched my Towards the New London Plan consultation, setting out how changes to the future planning policy framework might help achieve this. Towards the New London Plan considers how we can continue to support vital economic drivers and employment locations, including the central activity zone, London's town centres, and high streets and key sector-based economic clusters. I welcome views from Assembly members and from people, businesses and communities across London before the Towards the New London Plan consultation closes on the 22nd of June 2025. My next London Plan will ensure we have the right policies in place to support growth and safeguard London's ability to function effectively. It's also worth emphasising that London's economic success is integrally linked to housing delivery and investment in the necessary supporting infrastructure, such as transport and energy. London's housing affordability crisis needs to be addressed if we're to respond to the pressures which may limit London's economic dynamism. The housing crisis has been a huge drag on our economic productivity, both at city scale and on individual Londoners, in turn impacting their health and life chances. It's crucial for our future policy approach through my next London Plan tackles these issues in an integrated way. Indeed, I believe we have both a duty and opportunity to take the bold decisions that can secure sustainable, affordable housing, economic growth and prosperity, and enable Londoners access to more and better green spaces and nature, leading to better quality of life, as well as improving climate change resilience. The current plan was groundbreaking in terms of its approach to climate change and environmental protection. I'll be looking to ensure the quality and standards of the current plan promotes are retained and improved for Londoners. I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that through the new London Plan, we'll not only deliver the homes London needs, but our economic growth will help deliver health, social and environmental benefits for Londoners across our city.
Thank you. And you answered some of my follow-up questions in your answer. But I represent Enfield, which, as you know, has a great deal of green belt. And I listened very carefully to your announcement of new housing. And I was very reassured that you said you want to do this in a responsible way with taking the least green belt as possible and making sure that developments were sustainable. Can you just expand a little bit on how you believe you can do that and that development will not come at a cost to nature and the environment? Can we have both?
Thanks for your question. Look, I think homes and nature go hand in hand. I don't think it's one versus the other. What we're trying to do is to address the needs of our city by building more homes. More than 99% of homes built over the last 9 years have been on brownfield sites. We've broken records for most completions since the 1930s. Average 40 to 45,000 homes a year. We need around 88,000 homes here over the next 10 years. Now, a fifth of London is Greenbelt, more than 3 or 4 times of that just outside our city. So what the consultation is about is us actively exploring parts of the Greenbelt. And by the way, we're not talking about, you know, gorgeous parks in London or, you know, lush Greenbelt in London. A lot of the Greenbelt is poor quality, badly maintained, inaccessible to Londoners. In fact, only 13% of the Greenbelt is grass or open access to Londoners. And we would ensure that any homes there are good quality, well-designed, energy efficient, good transport connectivity, maximise affordable homes, but also increase biodiversity and increase access for Londoners to these green parts of our city. And the reassurances I can give you is what we're not going to have is a situation where there are these executive homes built on, lush green parts of the green belt. And just the final point is, I'm afraid not all of the green belt is, green and pleasant. A lot of it is not green, and even parts that are green are not pleasant. And so it's looking at what can be released.
I'm very keen on any new development really caters for that intergenerational space that we know promotes social cohesion. Will your new design standards make sure that we do build those intergenerational spaces with community areas so people have a real sense of place and home?
Absolutely. I mean, just about when we were growing up, there were hubs where different generations would meet, whether it's at pubs or post offices or community centres, and we've lost a lot of that for a variety of reasons over the last few decades. So in the current London plan, we have policies to encourage play and informal recreation. There is work we're doing with our designers in relation to good growth, but we will make sure that we have intergenerational spaces, it's called in planning jargon social hubs, to make sure we can have spaces for different generations to meet. And you're right, it engenders not just social cohesion, but many of the younger generation can learn from the older generation and vice versa. And it's really important to create these spaces, and the London plan should be a proactive tool for those spaces to happen. They don't happen by themselves.
Assembly Member Garbett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really looking forward to giving my views through the consultation, and it's a consultation that I wanted to raise a concern about. The accessible formats are only available on request and not as standard on the website, which isn't best practice. So I just wondered if they can be made available as soon as possible, and there's a bit of a concern about the short consultation window.
2 points. Firstly, it's not a statutory consultation, but the point she makes is really important. Let me look into that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next question, then, which is listening to Londoners from Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you very much for your question. I'm humbled and honoured to have been elected as Mayor of this great city, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I was reminded this morning that in last year's election, my margin of victory over the candidate who came second was the biggest ever in mayoral history. Every time that I've stood for election, I've done so in a manifesto that I felt reflected the way in which my values speak to the priorities of Londoners. Each manifesto has been different because the context for the city has been so varied in each of the 3 elections that I've won. A manifesto is a programme for a 4-year term, and what you're saying to Londoners is that these are my priorities and commitments, and I expect to achieve them over that time period. As is made clear from the question, we're only 12 months into this mayoral term, not in year 4. Yet in these 12 months, I'm proud that I've already been able to do so much for London. This includes launching a consultation for a world-leading development corporation to unleash an exciting new era for Oxford Street, publishing the London Growth Plan to turbocharge productivity in our city, investing record-breaking amounts into the Metropolitan Police from City Hall, making up for years of underinvestment by the Conservatives, opening the new Silvertown Tunnel on budget and on schedule, continue to invest in London's young people, from feeding primary school children through free school meals, to hitting my pledge to deliver over 100,000 quality mentors for young people in need, investing over £7 million to deliver major improvements to London's rivers that will improve the health of our waterways, increase biodiversity and restore nature, and launching the Greener Schools programme to help schools in London become more energy efficient and save up to £18,000 on their energy bills. As I said during my campaign, with the Mayor and Government working together, we have a moment of maximum opportunity to change London for the better and for good. And already, with this partnership in place, we're seeing the difference that good leadership makes. We've seen annual capital funding for TfL almost double, a record increase in police funding from the Government, confirmation that High Speed 2 will run to Euston after years of dither and delay under the Conservatives, Government backing for our plans to transform Oxford Street, an additional £500 million allocated for council homes and affordable housing in our capital, and an exciting new licensing pilot to take London's nightlife and hospitality offer up to the next level. I look forward to building on my legacy since being elected in 2016, working hand in hand with the Government and other partners, and continue to deliver for Londoners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should start by reminding you that more people actually voted against you than for you. And also, can I just remind anybody watching this that the question was, which of your manifesto commitments have you failed to deliver over the past 12 months? And as usual, you don't listen to the question, you don't read the question, you actually answer on how wonderful you think you are. So, since you're looking through rose-tinted glasses, let me help you with this a little bit. On the manifesto on which you were elected last year, you promised to hire 1,300 additional police officers, and yet you're now cutting 1,700 police officers from our streets, royal parks, and I could go on, other areas. You promised to lower crime, and yet robbery is up 54.6%, theft is up by 43%, shoplifting is up by 166.8%, and theft from the person is up by a shocking 171.5%. Since the election, nearly 1 million offences have been committed. And then you promised to build the homes that Londoners desperately need. And yet housing delivery is at record lows, rents continue to skyrocket, and your housing targets have had to be lowered. You promised to protect green spaces, and now you want to concrete over the green belt because you have failed to deliver housing. You promised to be the most pro-business mayor ever, and yet wealth is leaving London at an unprecedented rate while you support the government's job tax. You also promised to end rough sleeping, and it's gone up by 50%. They're the facts, Mr. Mayor. Despite what you say, they are the facts. So would you like to apologise to Londoners for all of those broken promises that you made in order to get yourself elected and that you've now failed to deliver?
Which I've been checking. That was a 3-minute question. I hope I'll be given the amount of time to respond to that 3-minute question. So let me deal with each point made in turn. Firstly, the comment that more people didn't vote for me than voted for me. I'm really pleased if you can tell me one government Conservative or one mayor Conservative where the alternative was the case. You can fact check now, maybe text our researchers who will give her the information. The first issue she raised was in relation to policing. We've more than doubled the amount of funding City Hall gives to the Met Police Service, which has led to an additional 1,300 police officers since I was first elected in 2016, paid for by City Hall. Additionally, we've managed to persuade this government in just the first 10 months to give us more money in terms of cash in 10 months than the previous government gave in 14 years. They've also, because of my lobbying, increased the amount of money received as a national and international capital city by more than 30%, an additional £60 million. The promise of 1,300 additional police or PCSOs is over a 4-year term, and I intend to keep that promise, as I have other promises when it comes to policing. And in terms of the victims of crime, well, one victim is one victim too many. Notwithstanding austerity over the last 14 years, we have in London the country's first violence reduction unit, and working with young people, we've managed to work with the police and others and reduce homicides in our city, teenage and those below the age of 25, reduce knife crime for those below the age of 25 where they are victims, reduce burglary and reduce lethal barrel discharge. But there are areas of crime which are too high, which is why the additional money from the government will be used to target those high-volume crime areas, because the victims of crime suffer in misery when they are victims of crime. We've got to make sure there are fewer victims of crime. She then went on to talk about housing, and I'm really pleased that over the last 9 years we've broken records in terms of the most council homes any time since the 1970s being built, the most homes completed any time since the 1930s, but it's still not enough. And that's why a couple of weeks ago I announced our plans to actively explore parts of the Green Belt to be built on. And this week I announced a plan of action to address the issue of rough sleeping, where we're going to deal with prevention as well as the consequences of this. The third area she touched upon was sky-high rents. Well, it's good to see...
Chairman.
It's good to see...
Chairman, if we look at the timing, the Mayor has taken up far more time than I did, and he's still not addressed the question. So I would like to leave it at that point, because if not, he'll just talk it out.
No, the Mayor should answer the question. If he can be more concise, We'd be grateful.
And I asked Chair where things were going wrong, and clearly he's not answering, as usual.
We don't know because he hasn't finished.
Well, he could go on for hours and he still won't. Let me assure you, Chair.
That's fine, but you've got to give him a chance to finish. Mayor, continue, but can you be more concise?
Well, all I was going to say, Chair, in conclusion, was that the member complains about sky-high rents. I think she forgets who was the Prime Minister when we had a mini-budget, which led to interest rates going north of 11%. And I think she may now be advocating rent controls.
OK.
I've finished, Chair. Thank you.
Fine. OK, so Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
Morning, Mayor. I see you're on good form this morning. When it comes to listening to Londoners, you could probably argue that housing is one of the biggest calls, and you're on record on constantly talking about your record delivery, and you know we've heard it before, and I'm sure you'll give us a rendition now. But you also have 2 years of record low delivery, 2 records that I feel that you should be ashamed of and should be addressing. So in 2023, 24, you did the second lowest number of affordable houses, and the lowest number of affordable houses, and 24-25 you've done the second lowest delivery of houses. The reason I asked that question, because in that period you had nearly £9 billion. What are you going to do differently? Because yes, it'd be easy to sit here and score some cheap political points, and I did have a try, but the real thing is we want you to succeed on these housing numbers because they are dire and the need is dire.
Well, as ever, Chair, can I thank the member for his question, and as ever, he's charming in the way he asked the question. Can I firstly correct a factual error? He said it's the lowest on record. When I became Mayor, I inherited a pipeline of 3, not 3,000, not 300, 3 social homes in the pipeline. So can I reassure him there's no way I'm breaking that record? A guy called Boris Johnson. But in relation to the last 2 years, he's right. There's been an issue across the country. London's not been excluded in relation to what the G15 called last week, not the Mayor, the G15 called last week a perfect storm. A combination of high interest rates, a combination of construction inflation, a combination of the consequences of the building safety regulator, which has caused delays, leading to the starts in the last 2 years not being as high as they should be. Completions are at high levels, which is good because of the homes we began before. And that's one of the reasons why we lobbied the government for additional money as a bridge to start those homes and then get those homes completed. And the good news is the government's working with us in relation to this issue, but also we're hoping to have more success in the SR as well. But it is an issue across the country. The House Building Federation, a national organisation, said across the country housing's the worst it's been since the Second World War, and that's a consequence of this perfect storm.
But you've said in the past, Mayor, that you could be counter-cyclical. Your situation in London is pretty unique because you are the planning authority in ways that many other people aren't, and you've had substantial sums of money, both from the previous Conservative government and I believe from your own. So it'd be very interesting to see what you're going to do differently, because for you, I believe you can't argue that it's money. You've had a lot of that. What different tactics are you going to employ? You have your London plan coming up. What's that going to do differently to deliver? What are you going to do to smash this cycle? Because we are running out of time.
Well, Chair, it could be argued I'm stealing Sean Bailey's policy because you've been talking for some time about building the Green Belt, give you credit.
Can you remind me of when I said that?
Oh, sure, I've got quotes. I've got quite a few of them. I've got Liz Truss, I've got Sean Bailey, I've got Boris Johnson, I've got them all. I was going to wait for Andrew Boff's question, but I'll bring it up now if you want me to. I've been invited to do so, Chair.
Give me one. Tweak my memory.
It's only fair I'd be allowed to do so. The quotes that I've got. So the Sean Bailey one is, which I'll come to shortly, and the Boris Johnson one and the Liz Truss one.
No, can I just have mine? Come on, you can do that to Andrew. Do this to me.
Can I bring it up for Andrew's question? It's in Andrew's section, so it's not in this section. But I'll bring it up, don't worry, in relation to your quote. But I'm taking your advice. I'm building the Green Belt. Actively exploring, not like Liz Truss, which is to build 1 million homes in the Green Belt, but actively explore where in the Green Belt we can, with the right conditions, build homes.
But it's interesting because you've always said not one blade of grass, you won't do it. So what's changed? Why are you now quoting that you'll build on the Green Belt? Have you been sent a message by Number 10 to get in line?
Well, hold on a sec. The question was, what will you do differently, right? I answer,
Yeah, and then I ask you another question. This is the new question. Mayor's question time. Yeah. Thank you for answering my question. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because Susan doesn't feel the same about you. I'm asking you a new question.
I don't know
why have you changed your approach?
They're not listening to the answer, right? Because they've pre-written the next question. They don't wait for the answer. They answer the next question, realising the question's been answered.
I did. I asked a different question. I appreciate your answer. I asked for another question. Then you went into filibustering.
Okay.
Why have you changed your approach to building on the green belt? You have sat in this room on hundreds of occasions and said, "Not a blade of grass." I'm asking, were you told by your boss that you have to build on the green belt?
Well, let me explain the question he asked before, which is huge need in London. The need's not being met. So what would you do differently? So the answer is, what we'll do differently is actively explore building parts of the greenbelt. The question then is, why are you doing that? Well, the answer is because we've got a problem for supplies not meeting the demand. Even if we built on every brownfield site in London, that's still only 44,000 homes, maybe at stretch 48,000 homes. We need 88,000 homes every year over the course of the next 10 years. So if we're going to meet that need, we've got to actively explore the Greenbelt, as well as building all the...
But Mr Mayor, can I pose another question? If you built on those 44,000, which is a low quote, I'd suggest, you wouldn't get to the Greenbelt for many, many years because of your low delivery targets. You've only delivered 5,800 out of the current affordable housing programme. With 44,000 places to build, you'd be fine for years. So again, why have you now decided that you need to build on the Greenbelt?
No, I've got the table here. Let me be quite clear. So the average homes completed in the 8 years before I became mayor was around 30,000, right? Okay. We've completed on average between 40 and 45,000. That's building on 90% of those homes are on brownfield sites. Even if we build out on every brownfield site in the city, we're talking about, on average, record-breaking numbers, 45,000. My maths tells me that's 43,000 less per year than London needs. That's why we're actually...
Mayor, I'm going to have to stop there for a little bit of time, but your record low delivery in the last 2 years would suggest that you have a lot of brownfield sites that you could do before that point. Thank you, Chair.
OK, let's move on to Assembly Member Best.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr Mayor. One of your commitments in your manifesto was to end rough sleeping for good by 2030. Obviously, since your time as mayor, we've just seen that figure rise. It's now at a record high. It's almost doubled since you came to power. One of the consequences of that being we're now seeing these large encampments, one, for example, in Park Lane. TfL are applying for the possession order in the Central London County Court today. I suppose that's an action that you would agree with. But obviously it's not too far away from when this happened at the tail end of last year. So what is your medium-term plan to stop another such encampment in the same location?
Just to explain to the member, the process of getting a court order takes some time. So the process began some time ago, and the order takes some time for it to come through. You should be aware of the issues with court backlogs and so forth. There's a separate issue about during the process of obtaining the court order, you don't just cross your arms and wait for the court order. You work with the council and partners to make sure you can provide those people who are sleeping rough alternatives to sleeping roughs. In this case, the middle of the carriageway in Park Lane. That work's been going on by TfL and partners during the course of the process of getting the court order. A lot of those who were previously rough sleeping there have been moved on to safe places. More people have arrived, but that's not stopped TfL getting the process of the court order.
To be clear, this is the second time that we're going through this process, and so to stop that happening again later in the year, are there any medium-term solutions to make sure that TfL isn't back applying for another possession order?
Yeah, I'm afraid the process often you've got to start again, unless it's the same people. And so I'm sure the TfL legal are looking into options they have to try and speed up the process. There are times you can get quick injunctions. Often you can't in these sorts of cases for reasons you'll appreciate. But TfL legal are not just on top of the process in terms of getting any court orders, but also working with partners like Westminster Council, who've been excellent on this issue, but also those who can help rehouse those who are sleeping rough, including those sleeping rough on Park Lane.
I think hopefully from your perspective as mayor, it will need some intervention, I think, in the coming months to make sure that this isn't a carousel, so I would hope that you would pick that up. As part of your announcements on rough sleeping this week, I think you've identified correctly that money isn't going to end rough sleeping. So, for example, you've seen since you came in as mayor, there was £8 million spent on this roughly, to now today about £45 million, both from yourself and government. Money isn't always the answer. A lot of these issues are entrenched, and one of those is around those with uncertain immigration status, which you've pledged to help through the Ending Homeless Hub. So I just want to understand how you envision that help working, because essentially there's not very much we can do when people don't have immigration status to stay in the UK and are on the streets and no recourse to public funds. It's very difficult to help in that way. So what do you plan to do through the Homeless Hub in those cases?
Sorry, does you mean just those who are not British or rough sleeping action plan?
So you've got, as particularly in the Ending Homeless Hub, you've got a specific set of help for those with uncertain immigration status.
So one of the things that the advisors do is to signpost those people who've got no recourse to public funds, could be because of immigration reasons, to those groups that do exist. There are quite a few voluntary and community support groups who assist those who've got no recourse to public funds. There are other charities that assist as well in terms of providing housing. Sometimes it's speaking to partners in countries of origin. Often people, once they know there is a safe passage back to country of origin, they can take that up as well. So working with those in the VCS sector, the experts are trying to match up those who've got no recourse to public funds with those groups. Sometimes, by the way, those with no recourse to public funds may think they've got no recourse to support for temporary housing, but they can do. Our job is not to provide the housing, we can't. It's simply to signpost them to expert advice that can help them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one final question from me is you have pledged many times your support for the reduction in winter fuel allowance and the ending of the universal offer. Now that the government look like they're U-turning on that, will you again pledge that you would like to see that returned to everybody, all pensioners? Will you be part of the calls to make sure that that is now a fair offer next winter?
So I'm quite clear. Unlike the current Conservative Party, I believe in supporting those who are the most vulnerable. I think it's really important to make sure the welfare system is a safety net for those that are vulnerable, and we've got to try and avoid people falling through the cracks. At the same time, I've been quite clear publicly, I don't just criticise people when they're from different parties, as some do. I think it's really important that we have a welfare benefit system that understands that actually sometimes universality is a really important principle. That's why I've got universal free school meals. I think it's a really important principle.
So you believe in the universality of winter fuel payments?
I think as somebody who believes in the NHS being free at the point of delivery.
So do you believe in the universality of winter fuel payments specifically?
I'm somebody who's on record in relation to my views on universality.
But you've also on record of defending the government on their withdrawal of universal winter fuel allowance. So just specifically on that issue, can you clarify that you are in favour of universal winter fuel?
I'm really pleased to be specific on this issue. This government's inheritance was awful. I mean, the mess left
But
back.
that's not really specific, because it's quite a specific question, isn't it? Do you agree with universal winter fuel payments? Yes or no? That is a specific question.
Actually, this question has been changed from the last question about being specific.
No,
about
it's
the
actually
government.
the same question, I think 3 times now.
Well, my specific answer is I support the government in cleaning up the mess left by the previous lot.
So I'll give you one more opportunity. Universal winter fuel allowance. Do you agree?
So let me try and answer that in ways that people understand. So I've said in the past
The way I would understand would be a yes or no. It's really quite simple.
In fact, I've been referred to speeches I've done before about the issue of universality, really important principle. I also support this government in cleaning up the mess left by the previous government.
Thank you, Chair. You can't answer the question clearly.
Assembly Member Prince.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. There we go. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations, Chair. Nice to see that most teams in Lancashire are being beaten by London. Unfortunately, as you well know, one of them particularly successful. Anyway, would you agree, Mr. Mayor, that in your manifesto you pledged to unleash a public transport revolution in outer London? And how do you square that with TfL's discriminatory and diversive changes to the W12, 13, 14 and 549 bus routes, which has had severe negative consequences for my constituency in Redbridge since they were imposed on September the 7th. Unfortunately, we won't have a briefing on this, Mr. Mayor, because this was a question that was put to me by my residents who are in the audience. For a bit of background, your Deputy Mayor and TfL have been quite helpful on this, but we still have a situation where the W12 has gone from a 20-minute service to a 1-hour service. So I'm asking, how does that square with your promise to unleash a public transport revolution?
Well, can I just say to the member, you'll never walk alone in relation to either this issue or other issues generally. To give you an idea of the transformation in public transport in outer London, the Superloop, I think, adds 6 million kilometres in terms of bus kilometres, ostensibly in outer London. The Elizabeth line has been transformative to outer London. Many were advising me to throw in the towel. I refuse to do so, and it's transformed public transport in outer London. The extension of the Bark and Riverside line serves outer London as well, and despite objections from many around the Assembly, we've been putting in good, safe cycling in outer London as well. We're consulting on a new bus route for outer London, the SL12, which will help people in his constituency as well. I understand the Deputy Mayor for Transport met with the member to discuss the W12 service. I was told it was a productive meeting. I'm sorry if it wasn't. I'm more than happy
I did say that they have been helpful, Mr Mayor. I did say that.
I'm more than happy to go back and look into the issue. My understanding is that last year routes W12, W13 and W14 were restructured to improve accessibility, increase capacity and bolster bus connectivity to Whipps Cross Hospital. If he's got further issues, I'm always happy to take them up with him.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm grateful for that. What my residents are asking for is a post-implementation equality impact analysis. Would you be agreeing to do one of those for me?
I'm happy to take that away, Keith.
Yeah?
I've not got the information in front of me.
Thank you. All right. On the Superloop and the Elizabeth line, they are an improvement for my residents, but as you know...
Transformative is the word I think you're looking for.
Yeah, well, no, they're not transformative, because the problem is, with the Elizabeth line, it's probably the most unreliable line that you have. So a lot of us are not getting transported when we want to be, and I've been a victim of that a number of times. Technical hitches, I'm sure you'll iron them out. And as you also know, currently the Superloop doesn't go to my residents in Havering. But again, we have promises and we look forward. We've also applied for a slight deviation on that, and hopefully you'll look favourable on that. But talking about buses, as we still are, Silvertown bus, we've got the lovely bus, the SCS, which I think is a furniture company. But anyway, the Silvertown cycle service is parked outside City Hall. I've yet to see anyone put a cycle on it. I'm not critical of the service, Mr Mayor. I was supportive of it, and I still am supportive of having a way of taking cycles through the new Silvertown tunnel. But what I noticed is that pedestrians are not permitted to board the bus unless they have a cycle, which, funnily enough, I don't often carry on me. Would it be possible, Mr Mayor, for you to consider allowing pedestrians to use this service, because it does seem to be a real waste that a bus sits there outside City Hall, it waits till its mate turns up, and then it goes empty through Silvertown and must come back again, and it just seems a waste of a service. And surely, whilst you may be able to give priority to cyclists, as it is a cycle bus, could you not allow pedestrians to also take advantage of that service, Mr Mayor?
Well, Chair, I would argue that the member's probably the most effective Conservative member of the Assembly over the last 8-9 years, and so he always comes up with suggestions that we can work better to serve his constituents. He's been really assiduous in the past, so he raises 3 points. I want to take them seriously, each in turn. First, Elizabeth line. Second, he raises the issue of SL12, and third, the issue of the cycle bus. On the issue of the Elizabeth line, I think he's probably the only person I've met in this city who doesn't think the Elizabeth line is transformative.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No, I said that.
I think the phrase was it's an improvement. So I would remind him. Last year, he was saying how brilliant it is when he's at Heathrow. He wants me to turn it into a night service.
That's part of it, Mr. Mayor. And every time I go to Heathrow on the Elizabeth line, there's a disruption on one of my journeys. Once we get it sorted, it will be brilliant. But we haven't got it sorted, and you know, take it. No, take it when you know, when it's true. Take it. It just needs sorting out. You know.
Well, I would argue that Elizabeth line is transformative, and it's one of the most reliable train lines in the country, but it can do even better, and it will. The second issue he raises is the SL12. He wrote to me, as he always does, in a constructive way, saying not unreasonably, Health Watch Havering have some ideas, and as ever, you know, I take his representation seriously. I've asked the Deputy Mayor to meet with him, and he's really keen to meet with him again to discuss, and the group, and so that's a commitment I can give to him, and I'm grateful for the way he raises these issues as well. The third issue he raises in relation to the Silvertown cycle bus, the first of its kind in the country. I would just say to him in a respectful way, the bus is what it says on the bus. It's a bus for those who've got a bike, put their bike on, and the cyclists can get on as well. There are 21 buses now running through the two tunnels. Some of them are free for pedestrians. The last time I checked, the SL4 is free for pedestrians. The 129 is free for pedestrians. The DLR is free to get across for pedestrians. So there are routes for pedestrians to get across. And you'll appreciate the challenges there'd be in having pedestrians on a cycle bus. But these are all kept under review, and there will be a review after 1 year.
I'm only asking you to look at it, Mr. Mayor. It seems a shame that you've got a bus, and so I've supported you on the cycle bus. It just seems a shame that the bus is going through virtually empty. Why can't you just look at it?
Well, there'll be a review, Chair, in a year's time in relation to the cycle bus and all the free buses we provide across the Silvertown tunnel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Assembly Member Garrett.
Morning. So, nationally, Ed Miliband is obviously aiming to achieve net zero over 25 years, and there's been some debate about the cost of achieving that. In your manifesto, you set out to make London a net zero carbon city, not in 25 years, but in 5 years. Do you think you've been clear with Londoners that the cost of achieving your ambition is about £5,700 per London household per year?
Well, I'm not sure of some of the stuff in the member's question, but I've been quite clear in London.
You're not sure about?
I've been quite clear with Londoners in relation to
trying to help him, Chair.
No, you
so the Element Energy report from 2022.
Stop. Give the Mayor a chance to. You can come back.
He said he wasn't
and
clear.
You'll get a chance.
He said he wasn't clear. I was trying to help.
I think he was maybe questioning some of your figures.
Well, then he should say that. He shouldn't use his...
Look, you're not discussing it with me. It's coming off your clock. We want to get to an answer. Give him a chance to give the first response. You will come back and give some clarity. That's how it works. Fine. Mr. Mayor, do you want to answer the question as you were beginning to answer?
Well, we can now see why he lost the leadership to Susan Hall. I mean, but let me deal with the substance of the question that he asked. I've been quite clear with Londoners. We aren't getting to net zero by 2030 without additional assistance from the government and from the private sector. Because we have carbon budgets for the first time ever, we set out those things that we can pay for, that GLA are responsible for, and our functional bodies. Those things that we can't pay for and are the responsibility of non-functional bodies as well. And it's important for us to explain to Londoners the costs of inaction versus the costs of action. That's what we've sought to do.
So the Element Energy report from 2022, which I'm sure you're familiar with because you commissioned it, said that the cost of achieving your ambitious, as you would call it, net zero goal by 2030 is £20 billion a year. That's £5,700 a year for every London household. Surely you're aware of the £20 billion cost. You can do some basic arithmetic. Do you think that Londoners are aware that that is the cost of your net zero 2030 ambition?
Well, I think the inference the member's making is that the entire cost was borne by Londoners. That's not the case.
Well, who else is going to bear the cost?
That's a problem when you write a question and the answer you receive to the first one is not what you expected. So as I said literally 2 minutes ago, the costs of us getting to net zero are met by a number of different constituencies. Londoners, yes. The government as well. the private sector as well. There'll be innovation along the way. It's a combination of three things: mitigation, adaptation and resilience. I'll give an example in relation to what we can do directly. Is our buses going from diesel buses, which is my inheritance, to zero-emission buses. Is an example how we can make the transition London. Other issues, for example, aviation, City Heathrow being two good examples, are not in the gift of the Mayor of London.
Biggest single element of it, though, is building. I mean, that's what it says in the report. That's what you say in your manifesto. I assume you are at least aware of that. Whether the money comes from the government or whether it comes from the private sector, which ultimately will be businesses passing it on to their customers, whether it comes through new taxes and charges that you levy on Londoners, that cost has to be borne in London, doesn't it? You can't expect Wales to pay for London's net zero. You can't expect Lancashire, for all their suffering in the world of football, to pay for our net zero cost. It has to ultimately be borne by Londoners. Do you think you've been clear with Londoners that the total cost of your net zero within 5 years ambition is about £5,700 per household? Do you think that you've been clear with Londoners that that's the cost of that ambition?
That isn't the position, Chair. I'm not sure how much more clear I can be with the member. The cost of getting to net zero for the capital city and for other places across the country is not borne by just the citizens of that city, that town or that village.
I've explained to you, perhaps I can explain it more clearly, why that is not true. Maybe it comes from government, which would be national taxation. Maybe it comes from local taxation in London. Maybe it comes from businesses investing, spending money which they would have to recoup through their customers. Ultimately, that cost has to fall on London. If every region of the UK is attempting to get to net zero, London needs to shoulder its own burden as the wealthiest region. The cost of it, achieving your goal of net zero 2030, is £20 billion a year. One way or another, that cost has to be met. Do you think you've been clear with Londoners that it will cost £20 billion a year to meet your ambition?
Well, Chair, I'm not sure I'll repeat the answer again if you want me to. I'm quite clear in relation to the cost of getting to net zero. Whichever route you take on the accelerated pathway, we've never said that cost is one to be incurred just by Londoners. We've been quite clear and transparent in relation to the different pathways, how we get there, and also the need for not just government support, not just private sector support, but other third-party support as well. Some of our policies will help us get there. So the emissions from the GLA is going to reduce hugely. On current estimates, we think the GLA carbon emissions will be reduced by 83% by 2030. With some government support, for example, to get more zero-emission buses, that can be reduced to north of 90%. Other emissions, clearly, outside the GLA family, there'll need to be support. I'll give two examples of
I don't think we need more examples.
Two examples of...
Chair, he's not answering the question.
Two examples of recent support we've had is...
The question was about cost.
One in relation to...
You can't keep talking over him. Sorry, Mr Mayor, I'm talking over you. Right? But, OK, if you want to stop now, because that's who you finished,
Chair,
I think the Mayor was endeavouring to answer your question. It might not be what you want to hear or the answer that you desire. Do you know what I mean, in that sense?
It's an answer to an entirely different question. I'm going to leave it there. Your biased Labour chair bodyguard has come in because he can see that you don't want to be straight with Londoners. You don't want to be straight with Londoners about the cost.
Stop.
I will leave it there.
No,
Thank you, Chair.
You'll stop now because look at your colleagues. They don't agree with you in those private remarks. And I want an apology from you before we continue. Because I'm not biased in this issue. I'm trying to get the best out for the Assembly members in terms of the answers. But the Mayor will answer in the way that he wants. I'm not going to make him do any different, as in you can't do it from the chair, right? You get what you get. I understand sometimes the frustration from members around the table, but you talking over him, you interrupting, is not a good look for you. But equally, look at your colleagues around here.
They all agree with me,
so
Chair.
Do you think I'm biased then? So you want to challenge the chair? Do you really think I'm biased?
I think that it is very clear that the Mayor was not answering my question. He was answering an entirely different question. I gave him plenty of opportunity to do so. And, Chair, I think you were very happy for him to run down the clock, not answering the question. I will take back...
I have done
you asked me to apologise,
that previous
Chair.
chairs have done in this position in terms of conducting this meeting. I do resent what you've said, because I don't think it's fair or accurate.
I resent my time being wasted by the Mayor talking about a completely different question. I will apologise for saying that you're biased. I don't yet have sufficient data to reach that conclusion because we will see whether the Labour Party's clock is also wasted in the same way, Chair. So I reserve judgment.
We'll see.
Sorry, the frustration, Chair, and I think the frustration, Assembly Member Bakari said it very first time, is that we are not getting answers to the actual questions we are posing. Now, I accept the Mayor can answer in whichever way he wants, but given that we only have one meeting a month to put forward questions that Londoners have asked us to ask, that we should expect a proper answer from you, Mayor, not what you want to go on about different things. We treasure this time because we want proper answers, and our frustration from all of us on this side is that we're not getting proper answers.
In all my 25 years on this Assembly, I've never known a Mayor to give the full answers and satisfy everyone around this table.
That doesn't make it right, Chair.
Actually,
that doesn't make it right.
And I did spend considerable time in opposition to Boris Johnson, and that, if you thought that was, if you think dealing with this Mayor is difficult, well, go back and look at the transcripts and the videos. Look, I understand your frustrations. I think sometimes the Mayor does answer the questions. I think, to be fair, he's done 5 questions. I've been quite tolerable, I think, listening to Londoners and listening to all the interventions that you've got. I could have intervened and said, if you want to be biased, if you want biasness, I'll give you a biasness. I don't intend to, right, in terms of that. But I could have actually started to question the number of questions you posed to the Mayor where he might not have been fully briefed in a way that he would have wanted to answer those questions. I think he's just done that. So look, I think we understand the nature and the flaws of this interaction. We do the best that we can on both sides. And all I asked you is I understand your frustration, but where are you going to take it out on? You need to think about how you're using your time. You need to pose your questions and accept that sometimes the Mayor is not going to fully answer those questions in the way that you might like. And yes, Labour members have been on the back of a Labour Mayor that didn't want to answer certain questions in that way. And I suspect there has been times when we might have thought, Sadiq, we might have wanted more. Let's move on. Let's get back to it in terms of where we are. Assembly Member Garrett, have you finished? Yes. Thank you. Right, Assembly Member Cooper.
Can we just welcome the school first?
Chair, if I could, for those, could I explain to those watching, the air conditioning is not working over there, which is why they're hot under the collar. We'll try and sort that out. We'll try and sort that out. Try and sort that out in the break.
Just to give us
that particular member there with the beard, he's had a really bad 3 weeks.
Let's just also, while we're having this little break, can I welcome the Equality Ambassadors and the Pupil Parliament from Stanhope Primary School in Ealing. We do behave ourselves sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you very much, Chair. Shall I continue? Mr. Mayor, I think the original question, although we seem to have got lost in everyone else's questions that they're bringing up from the end of the order paper of questions, is about your manifesto commitments. But just to help you, because we seem to have a problem, just to help you, I wonder if you would like me to remind you of when the Conservative peer, Assembly Member Bailey, has broken ranks to call for new housing to be built all over the protected Greenbelt. There's a housing crisis in London, he said. Someone is going to have to be brave and start talking about the Greenbelt. We will have to have that conversation. And that is reported on the On London website on the 7th of June 2024 last year, just after, I think, Mr. Mayor, you were re-elected.
Oh dear, oh
Chair,
dear, oh dear.
Do I get to respond?
Sean,
hold on.
Surely it's time.
Hold on.
You've been
caught, Sean.
You can come back in.
You've been caught.
You can come back in and use your time if you want. Who was named? Well, okay. I don't think. Yes. on that basis, can we get the answer? Can we get the answer first, and I bring you in? Not on time.
I was going to say something out of order. Could I?
No, you might want to. But in sense,
You have
that you
no
get a
proof
chance
of
to
that.
respond to it if he says something out of order, doesn't he? I shouldn't have to tell you what's in your best interest, Assembly Member. I know you think I'm biased.
Question time. I want him to answer my question.
Chair, can I thank, as ever, the Assembly Member that represents me for reminding me of that. I think we call that selective amnesia.
Very sad. And also, Mr Mayor, just on the point about elections, and congratulations again on your enormous victory last year, it's quite common in a first-past-the-post system for somebody not to receive a majority of the votes. And I just wondered if you would be surprised to hear that when Assemblymember Hall was elected in Harrow, she only got 30% of the votes, and 70% of people in that election in Harrow in 2022 didn't vote for her.
Well, that may be, Chair, why she was only the leader for 7 months.
Oh. But let me come back to some of the things in the manifesto. You mentioned a few things in your answers. You mentioned a few things in your answers to a few other people, and I'd like some of this time back on my clock, please. So I won't rehearse those, but I'm very disappointed, Mr Mayor, and I wonder if you'll be shocked to hear that you didn't mention the Hopper Fair, you didn't mention the night tube, you didn't mention the low-emission bus zones, the T-charge ULEZ, the expansion of ULEZ, you didn't mention how you've cleaned up air in London, you didn't mention water fountains, and of course you would expect me to mention water fountains. I don't think I heard you mention the Superloop 2. You know, I think there are one or two of your manifesto commitments London is mentioned to me all the time. So listening to Londoners, Mr Mayor, would you be surprised to hear that they're very happy with some of these things that you've delivered?
I think Mr Mayor, I think you should tell us all the wonderful things that you've done.
Right, stop now. Mayor, do you want to come back and respond?
I'm incredibly proud of our achievements since 2016. And, you know, the fact that Londoners, you know, voted for me again in 2021 and in record numbers again in 2024 is a source of huge humility to me, and it's really important that and members reminded us that we continue to deliver for Londoners. The knockabout stuff is fine, it's all good fun and stuff, but actually at the core of this is when you're in politics, you know, you make a promise to those people who have the right to vote. They vote for you, and I've got a mandate to deliver on that manifesto, and I won't be knocked off course by Punch and Judy politics from the party over there.
Right, let's bring in
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Assembly Member Lord Bailey. So you've been named and you believe that you've been misrepresented.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm literally speaking.
You can't speak.
Yes, let me tell you why I'm being misrepresented. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm trying to be helpful.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the help. Yes. I have been misrepresented because you somehow tried to present those comments as if it was some kind of secret, some kind of dirty secret I had. I said them because I believe them. And the fact that other people in my group and outside my group don't believe them is an issue for them. Let's be very clear. There's a housing issue in this southeast of the whole country, and I do believe we need to look at it. I said it then, I say it now, and if you ask me next week, I'll say the same thing.
Okay,
and Chair, to be fair to the member, I was giving him credit. I did in the previous answer. I did say it's an idea that he mentioned, and I think he didn't remember mentioning the idea, and so I wasn't trying to, you know. And I also said Liz Truss is also on record. I found it, by the way. And so I was trying to say, because the question was why have you changed your mind? That's what it was. It wasn't trying to, you know.
Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could welcome Stanhope Primary School, I'm sure they are. I know, in fact, they are more used to far more mature debate in their own school. So great to have you here. Look, Mr Mayor, I just want to correct you, actually, to start off with. You celebrated Crystal Palace, you celebrated Tottenham Hotspur, but actually Chelsea women's team made it a treble on Sunday as well, and in fact beating another Manchester team on Sunday, so another thing to celebrate. So West is best on that front too. But look, very, very quickly, we did have a question from Assembly Member Garrett, who was asking about the cost of moving to net zero. Actually, what is the cost of not delivering on our manifesto pledge to move to net zero?
Well, can I thank the member for reminding me about Chelsea Ladies beating another Manchester team over the weekend, comprehensive victory, and I think the Chelsea Ladies are showing actually they're a force in Europe as well now. We're hoping that they beat Barcelona on this occasion, as they've not done in previous occasions in next season. Look, the costs of inaction are really important for us to understand, and so we had 2 years ago more rain in 1 hour than a month's rain normally, which led to real problems with flash flooding across our city, homes being flooded, tube stations being flooded, hospitals being flooded. During the heat wave of a couple of years ago, we had 400 excess deaths that summer, as well as wildfires across our city as well. We've had to invest in the fire service to address these issues caused by climate change. We know that parts of the underground were not able to be used because temperatures were in excess of 40 degrees Celsius during that heat wave. We also know, of course, the consequences in relation to those who are least responsible for the consequences, suffering the most of the consequences of climate change. So, I think you can't have your head in the sand like some would try to do so. I'm really proud. We have record numbers of electric buses in our city, zero-emission buses. I'm really proud. We have record numbers of zero-emission taxis in our city. I'm really proud. We've increased fivefold the amount of safe cycling in our city. We are making our schools greener. We are adapting our homes and making sure that the new homes are as green as they can be as well. We mustn't pretend the cost of doing nothing doesn't have a consequence. It does in terms of the cost to humans, but also the financial cost as well.
Can I just welcome Year 10 students from Ashcroft Academy in Wandsworth that have just arrived? And we now move on to our next question from Assemblymember Garbett. Assemblymember Garbett supporting Londoners in the use of the powers of the Renters' Right Bill.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that the Renters' Rights Bill is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to improve the experience of private renting in England. It will bring a fairer balance of rights and responsibilities between renters and landlords, giving renters the security they need to lay down roots in their communities without the fear of repeated forced moves or being made homeless. I've long campaigned for strengthening renters' rights, sowing the seeds in my 2019 blueprint for reforming private renting. This proposed ending Section 21, introducing open-ended tenancies, reforming possession grounds, increasing notice periods and introducing a mandatory landlord register which includes a rogue landlord database modelled on my rogue landlord and agent checker, which enables renters to hold landlords to account. All these measures form part of the Renters' Rights Bill, and I welcome the priority the government's given to addressing the insecurity, poor conditions and unreasonable rent hikes that renters both in London and nationally too often face. Let's not forget that London's 2.7 million renters were repeatedly let down by previous governments and should not have had to wait so long for action. To deliver that change, renters, landlords and property agents need to be aware of and understand their new rights and responsibilities. Given this is national legislation, it will clearly need a national awareness campaign. I'm sure the government's PRS database will be a key source of information for renters. My own web pages will also share information with Londoners about their new rights, and of course I'll use my social media channels and partnerships with key stakeholders to ensure that both renters and landlords know about their new rights and responsibilities. Chair, councils also have a vital role to play in helping renters feel empowered to use their new rights and complain about poorly performing landlords. It's councils who will be responsible for investigating and enforcing against breaches of the new legislation, and proper upskilling and resourcing will be essential to this. I'm working closely with government to ensure the bill works as well as possible, and my private rented sector partnership also continues to bring councils together to share expert knowledge and best practice, including on enforcement, skills and recruitment in preparation for the upcoming changes.
Thank you for that response. I know you share my concerns that the measures within the bill aren't quite strong enough and that uncapped rents might lead to eviction notices, even with the Section 21 reforms. But as you've said, the bill is really good for renters, but only if renters are aware of their rights and are able to exercise them, because currently renters do have rights, but they are undermined and exploited by the inaction from councils. Renters' unions are already empowering renters, working to challenge landlords. I'm really delighted to have members of ACORN here today at the back, who are embedded in their communities and identifying issues faced by renters and holding councils to account. in your manifesto, and I didn't hear you mention unions in your response, but in your manifesto, and I quote, you did say that you'd back renters to defend their rights of advice and guidance, including funding for groups such as renters' unions. So I just wondered if you stand by that commitment and if you're going to be providing funding, because it's obviously a key time for renters' unions.
Thanks for your question, and the member's assiduous in raising this issue. I'm really grateful. So I've invested over £11 million in a range of interventions to give support to the renters she refers to, and that's to fund organisations to offer free advice on issues, including housing, welfare benefits and debts as well, to help them boost the services and extend them into community settings across the city. So we're already out investing £11 million. On top of that, there's the online cost of living hub. But what I'll do, Chair, is ask my office to send the member details of the support we're giving, where advice is available, because obviously the member's got reach into other parts of the community where people may not be aware of the advice available. And if she could advertise that, that'd really that'd really help.
That'd be great, because I'm not aware that any of that 11 million's gone to the unions, though. Has it?
I've not got a list of all the people funded, but I can, in the list I send to the member, make sure that's set out in there as well.
Yeah, that would be really good to know, because from the unions I've spoken to, I don't think they've benefited from that funding, and obviously that's a key manifesto pledge and a key year for the Renters' Rights Bill and people knowing their rights. So as Acorn has raised, and they spoke to some Assembly members today about enforcement, so councils are going to get new enforcement powers, but we know that they're not using their enforcement powers they've already got, so it's really key that they utilise these new powers. From a freedom of information request that Acorn's done, they've shown the difference across the city. So, for example, in the past 3 years, Barking and Dagenham have conducted 10 times more inspections than Haringey, and Camden have issued 100 times more fines than Croydon. So I've just wondered what you're hearing from councils for the reasons for the inconsistency, and how we can support councils to use their powers better to hold landlords to account.
Yeah, good question. So one of the things we're hearing from councils is the need for there to be additional resources for them to be able to undertake their work. She will know from the work she does the challenges councils have had over the last 14 years. In my view, the government needs to give boroughs financial support so they can exercise the sort of things the member is talking about. It's really important that all boroughs have the resources to not just publicise the availability of the services, but to take the enforcement action that she refers to as well.
And I know you mentioned your partnership, but is there anything you're doing to, kind of bring that standard up across the city so all renters are getting the same service and being supported by their councils?
I think London Council does a great job in terms of sharing best practice across councils. The private rented sector partnership is about bringing councils together to share experience. She's mentioned some councils who've got expertise in this area, so share expertise, best practice on enforcement, on skills and recruitment. We ourselves have helped some councils train up their staff in relation to this area, because obviously we can, as a strategic authority, do that. And it's really about peer-to-peer stuff as well. And I know London Council do a lot of that. I'll pass on the comments the member makes in relation to some councils, doing more enforcement than others, and whether the London Council can work together to try and share the best practice.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thanks. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Boff.
Mr Mayor, I'm quite grateful to the Acorn campaign for renters' rights, who met with Assembly members before this meeting today and gave their view very strongly and assertively. Do you think that renters should have the right to know who their managing agents of their landlords are?
Firstly, there are other renters' unions equally good, and so yeah, it's really important that we don't have them complaining about this. I wasn't aware that tenants couldn't find out the details of the managing agent. I can take that away. Chair, look what the issue is there in relation to the issue of not knowing that, why the reason is.
No, I don't know either. And perhaps you could have a word with your colleague, Jazz Athwell MP, who, of course, still to this date, we don't know who the managing agents are. Perhaps you could have a word with him and ask him who were these appalling managing agents that treated his tenants so badly. Nothing?
I think the Mayor was about to respond.
I'm Chair, the member on previous occasions has raised the issue of this Member of Parliament, which is well documented in the media. My understanding is that he's not been prosecuted in relation to any of these issues. If he was, he'd be on the rogue landlord and agent checker. There's a scheme to report a rogue landlord as well, and so it's really important for people to understand there are criteria for being on the rogue landlord list. And if any landlord is somebody who's prosecuted or fined, they end up on the list.
OK, let's move on then to the question from Assembly Member Clark, supporting London to continue as the world's best destination.
Thank you for your question. For the first time ever, London has been crowned the world's most popular destination. The 25th anniversary edition of the TripAdvisor Traveller's Choice Awards confirmed what millions of Londoners know to be the case. We're lucky to have the opportunity to live, work and socialise in a city full of world-class cultural institutions, amazing food, legendary music and sport, beautiful open spaces and unrivalled heritage. London is the city that has something for everyone. Tourism is vital to London's economy. It contributes at least £10 billion annually to our economy and supports around 7% of jobs in London. It's also important to the national economy, with London acting as a gateway to the UK for many international visitors, with around 15% going on to visit other parts of the country. That's why we can't be complacent and need to work hard to ensure that we maintain London's position as one of the top tourism destinations of the world. With input from our tourism advisory group of industry stakeholders, London and partners have developed a 2030 tourism vision for our city to ensure London remains a brilliant experience for visitors and Londoners alike, to build a sustainable, resilient and inclusive future for tourism in London. I want visitors to stay longer and see more of the city. To achieve this over the next year, I'll stress 5 things we want to do. Firstly, we'll support existing and future visitor destinations in central London and outer boroughs to develop and grow their visitor experience. Secondly, we'll improve access to data to better understand visitor behaviours and satisfaction and roll out citywide Wi-Fi so international visitors can affordably access the internet to make the most of their time in London. Thirdly, we will activate new experiences and events across our city, like our new cultural quarter at East Bank and a long-awaited new London Museum, which will tell London's story to new generations of visitors and Londoners alike. We'll also keen to host major sporting and cultural events in the city. Fourthly, we want to better understand and address the carbon impact of tourism, ensuring that the industry is meeting targets and encouraging visitors to behave more sustainably. And finally, we'll continue to tell London's story brilliantly on our Visit London channels, which inspire 17 million visitors each year.
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive answer. This week, I'm hosting 5 members of my family from Wisconsin. They arrived yesterday, and we've already been to the RAF Museum in Hendon. We've been to the National Gallery, the Tate Modern, and we had dinner at a fabulous local restaurant in Cricklewood called Elementary. They've also enjoyed breakfast this morning at Ronnie's in West Hampstead, and we're very much looking forward to later this week seeing 6 in the West End, visiting the British Museum and having dinner at one of my favourites, Namaste in Highgate. London is full of wonderful things to do and see, and it's my favourite city. I'm sure it's yours too. Tourism is a boost to our economy, not just as a city, but locally. Our local high streets benefit, our city benefits, and our country benefits. What do you think it says about London, quite apart from the things you're doing to promote it nationally and internationally? What does it say about our city that it's been the world's favourite tourist destination for over 25 years?
Well, okay, can I just first say to the members' family, spend. It's really that's the Mayoral edict. It's really important, and she probably should have negotiated a commission for all those places she's plugged just now. She missed out Chelsea Flower Show, which ends on Saturday. But it's just another example of the world seeing London at its finest. Look, we've got some great crown jewels in London. She's mentioned some of them. The British Museum is one of them, and we literally have the crown jewels, literally as well. But we also have new and emerging attractions in our city as well. She, in some of the things her family are doing, talked about some of the diversity in restaurants she's mentioned, but also I'm really pleased that her family are getting to see outer London as well, because people assume London is just Zone 1. Important though Zone 1 is, there are great things to see all over the city as well. But I think it speaks to our values. One of the things I'm really proud that we've done is welcome visitors to our city. You'll see in other cities around the world be anti-tourist for reasons that we can empathise with some of the challenges cities have. But actually, I'm really pleased that in London you're seeing quintessential Londoners welcoming tourists to our city, because not just does it contribute economically, but people leave thinking positively about our city. People leave thinking, you know, I'd like my son or daughter to study there. People leave thinking, I'd like to invest there. People leave with a good impression of our city and our country, so it makes me incredibly proud. But don't forget, we've got competition from other cities around the world, so we can't stand still. And that's why, you know, we've got to make sure we continue to invest in future things to attract tourists from around the world, which is why I'm really pleased this week to have announced the Laver Cup is coming to London next year at the O2. The world's best tennis players playing in a team sport, and it's really important to continue to try and get other events in our city.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the special mention to Outer London, and I absolutely agree that there's great attractions, including the RAF Museum in Barnet. Quickly, because I'm running out of time, but you mentioned some football congratulations, and I wondered if you would join me in congratulating Barnet FC in their promotion to the English Football League.
I absolutely would. I better mention the Dons, who are at Wembley playing on Monday in the playoff finals. They got through the semi-final against Notts County. We've got some great teams in London. Should appreciate, though, that you never change your team, which is why I'm trying to get to Anfield on Sunday to support the 20th Premier League title for the great, mighty Liverpool.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, let's move on to the next question in the name of Leonie Cooper, tree protection. And once that's completed, we will have a short break.
Thank you for this really important question as well. The felling of the White Webb's oak is a deeply troubling event. It's a stark reminder of the vulnerability and importance of London's ancient and veteran trees. These trees are irreplaceable, given their historical, cultural and ecological significance. I share the aspiration to see them better protected and more proactively managed. Through the London Plan, we've strengthened local tree protections beyond national requirements. The current version improved significantly on the 2016 plan from the previous mayor. Previously, trees of value were to be protected, but without any definition. The updated plan now requires the value of trees to be assessed using recognised valuation tools such as CAVAT and iTree. It also clearly defines a tree of value, giving boroughs a more consistent and evidence-based framework for decision-making. But it's clear that national protections aren't sufficient. Some parts of the system, such as the tree felling licence regime, have recently been strengthened, but others, including the tree preservation orders and conservation areas, are based on legislation designed decades ago. These could be modernised to better reflect today's ecological and climate priorities. There's also a strong case for reviewing penalties to ensure they act as an effective deterrent and prevent the felling of ancient trees like the White Webb's oak. But most critically, the system primarily relies on local authorities. Boroughs are responsible for implementing, publicising, monitoring and enforcing tree protections. Many are doing excellent work, but better resourcing and long-term capacity are essential if these protections are to be effective. Securing strong protection is vital to achieving the canopy cover target I've set in the London Environment Strategy, a 10% increase by 2050. Since 2016, I've supported the planting of more than 600,000 trees. Alongside this, with the Forestry Commission, we've established the London Urban Forest Partnership, a key forum for citywide collaboration. I remain fully committed to delivering the London Urban Forest Plan for partnership. The partnership is produced. Funding we secured has enabled a complete rebuild of the ancient woodland inventory, which now, for the first time, includes sites below 2 hectares. The plan's February update outlines actions to improve the ancient tree inventory and promote best practice in preventing illegal felling.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I think your commitment to protecting existing trees as well as planting new ones is much to be commended, but we have seen these examples of illegal tree felling. Wandsworth Conservative Council at the time felled 78 chestnut trees on the middle of Tooting Common, which I know you're very familiar with. They have been replaced by small-leaved limes, but the canopy cover from the small-leaved limes is tiny compared to what was there before. And a whole series of trees not far from the AFC Wimbledon ground in Plough Lane were cut down by a car dealership. Now, the council stopped it. There's one or two of the big ones left, but they've mostly had to replant. But they did all of that without permission, just as the Toby Carvery did the same thing in White Webbs. And I just wondered if you think how much stronger penalties should be where people are felling trees illegally.
Well, firstly, can I just commend the media for reporting the recent cases? It's really important that this has been reported, and the reason why the media are reporting it, I suspect, is because of the public interest. And there is a huge amount of public interest. I remember the examples you gave about the chestnut trees being cut down at Tooting Common. I mean, the amount of public anger was measurable, because it's very important to us, and it's really important that we get the message across to a car dealership or, somebody who runs a pub, that actually, you doing and behaving this way is not a way to garner more customers. And it's really important that public opinion is made known. At the same time, I think we need to understand that actually some of the powers are dated. They need to be reviewed. But actually, the question is whether councils, the Forestry Commission and others have the resources and appetite to go after those who break the law. Deterrence is really important in any form of penal reform. And so sometimes it's whether those tools are being used in terms of prosecutions. It's sometimes whether the sentence is enough of a deterrent. And I think we should be looking at whether the penalties and the fines are big enough. There's one case I know about with a borough in London who are currently looking into a case. One of the challenges they have is whether the cost and the process involved in bringing a prosecution is proportionate to the fine that may ensue afterwards and stuff. And these are some of the conundrums that councils and the Commission are looking into.
And I just wonder, just very briefly, you mentioned TPOs, tree protections orders, and they haven't been updated for years and years and years. Do you think, that there should be national legislation? Because obviously Sycamore Gap is hardly in our backyard, but has appalled people across the country. Should we be looking into looking at the feasibility of automatically designating some trees, veteran and ancient trees, with some form of new tree protection order?
Yeah, I think the whole TPO system needs updating. The whole issue of amenity value needs updating. I think there's a separate issue about the lack of national framework. But the third issue is data. I mean, we've not got the data. I can't tell you the number of trees in London that have been planted. I can tell you the ones we've helped fund or have been felled. Each borough has some have records, some don't. So there's
different systems
about the whole system that needs serious updating very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor, I actually used to play under that 500-year-old oak tree when I was a child, having been born and raised in Enfield. Yeah, not 500 years ago, mind you. That was I still had the beard then. But I would ask, would you join with me in asking councils to be proactive with these heritage assets, particularly trees, in issuing tree protection orders? I know it's not generally done, but given what we've experienced, to stop these crooks cutting down our valuable heritage assets, such as these trees?
I think that the way you've asked the question shows how emotional these trees are to us, and it's really important that just because we live in the city, doesn't mean we don't love nature and love trees. And I'm really grateful for the way you've talked about your personal experience and the emotional connection you have to the tree. The answer is yes, but I think from your experience in your neck of the woods, I mean, councils, whatever political persuasion, have got so many other pressures as well. And I think councils need to understand this is important as well. Yes, the statutory services are important, but then proactively working out where the trees are, recording it, applying for a TPO is something that I'd want councils to do, but I do recognise the pressures they're under.
I welcome your response. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member McCartney.
Yes, thank you. Following on from that, it is a very emotional and emotive subject, and I was very surprised to see that tree preservation orders are not placed on most heritage trees. In fact, most heritage trees do not have protection. At a recent Environment Committee, we heard that in actual fact local authorities only tend to protect when there's they're aware of an imminent danger to a particular tree, which didn't seem to be that imminent danger. But there are some different regimes across the world, such as in Toronto, there is a permit system needed if you're chopping down trees, particularly heritage trees such as that. So when Leonie Cooper, as chair for the Environment Committee, comes up with those recommendations, if they are around reviewing legislation and strengthening those, would you join the Assembly in calling on government to do that?
Well, I think the member will find that a lot of our policies over the last 9 years are because of representations made by Member Cooper in terms of the environment. Of course, I look at the recommendations made by the committee. One of the things that I think we all have got to recognise is, TPOs are issued by local councils. Often it's because residents have let them know about a tree that they are in love with and they want a TPO because there's a danger and stuff. But anything to preserve those really important trees that we can do, I'm more than happy to look at the recommendations made by the committee.
Now, in a non-biased way, I would like to propose that the Assembly
Chair,
now
we're tied,
adjourns
Chair. I think we should
for
carry
10
on.
minutes and returns at the time of
11:49, Chair.
11:49 before continuing the remaining business on the agenda. Are the Assembly members in agreement? We are. Thank you.
Chair.
Can I welcome you back for the next session of Mayor's Question Time? We begin with the question on housing for women leaving prison in the name of Assembly Member Mohima.
Can I thank the member for the question, but also thank the Housing Committee and the member as Deputy Chair for the investigation into the housing needs of women leaving prison, and look forward to considering the recommendations of their report, Breaking the Cycle, Housing Needs for Women Leaving Prison in London. No single person, Chair, should leave prison into homelessness. The availability of housing and support is crucial to ensuring those leaving prison are able to rejoin society, rebuild their lives and reduce the risk of reoffending. Despite having no powers in this area and limited resources, I have a strong track record of supporting women in contact with the criminal justice system. Meeting the accommodation and support needs of these women requires a multi-agency approach, which is why I've co-commissioned with HM Prison and Probation Service, NHS and Lambeth Council, a specialist service for women in the criminal justice system, with combined funding of over £9 million since 2022 to support over 1,500 women per year at risk of reoffending. This holistic service includes the provision of housing advice and community support. We've also launched my rough sleeping plan of action. This sets out my key priorities and interventions for the GLA and our partners to drive an end to rough sleeping in the capital by 2030, and how the government and other partners can work with us to support these aims. And it was great to see the member at the launch earlier on this week. The plan puts prevention at its heart, including by improving coordination to prevent rough sleeping among those leaving institutions like prisons and providing more specialist advice. It also calls for the provision of multidisciplinary support for all those leaving prison. Whilst ultimate responsibility for meeting the housing needs of women leaving prison sit with London's boroughs, I'm clear that government should look to embed an interagency approach to homelessness prevention in their upcoming National Homelessness Strategy. Women's experiences of rough sleeping are particularly harmful, and we will use data from the Women's Rough Sleeping Census to better meet their needs. Working with London councils and London boroughs, we're developing a London-wide programme to accelerate efforts to end homelessness and rough sleeping. The programme has been developed this year and is designed to test new ideas, and, where successful, ensure they're rolled out across London. It will also ensure the homelessness sector is ready for the task ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Khan, for that very thorough response. And as you've already referenced, the Housing Committee has recently published a cross-party report, and that report was off the back of some work that has been happening over the last couple of years, including a cross-party motion which was ably assisted by the London Prisons Mission. But I wanted to ask you, and in light of the Rough Sleeping Action Plan, the report talks about the way in which we can support women who are leaving prison, who are entering to homelessness, or even worse, deciding to commit offences in order to stay in prison because that's a safe place for them to be, where they'll be housed and fed. What additional services do you think are required to provide the best outcomes for women leaving prison, particularly in light of the fact that the types of offences that women commit are very different, and we know nationally there's a conversation about reducing the number of people in prison overall?
Can I thank the member for her question, but also her keen interest in this really important matters? Look, I've obviously worked in this area and got experience in this area. My experiences tell me there are three main reasons why people reoffend, men and women. One is a lack of a job, two is a lack of contact with their family, but three is lack of housing. And so there's actually a need to address this issue, not just because of the consequences of rough sleeping, but also if we're going to reduce reoffending as well. So at the core of the plan of action we published this week is prevention. Because at the moment, the way the system works is you've got to be bedded down, sleeping rough before you get support, which just doesn't make sense. Nobody would expect somebody to first be an inpatient before they got healthcare support. And so we're going to change the way the system works, so you don't need to be verified before you get assistance. And so just like we've got support workers, we'll have them going into day centres and food banks, it's worth thinking about how we can work with the probation service and prison service so we can support women before they leave prison to make sure they've got a home to go to. And that's why the government's national homelessness strategy is so important. And the same goes, by the way, when women leave hospital as an inpatient, how they got somewhere to go to or leave a police station and so forth. So that's some of the coordination we're going to be doing with the government. But it's really important to get this sorted. What we don't want is somebody having to reoffend to go back to a safe place, in other words, prison, or the risks that come with being a rough sleeper.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, one of the we had the privilege of hearing from lots of experts, both professionally but also experts by experience, much like the rough sleeping plan of action. And I want to give a shout out to London Borough of Lambeth, who do have in place prison coordinators to work with women before they leave prison, so that they can be rehoused and reacquainted with kind of everyday life and their families. And it's something which was raised in the Women's Prison Release Practice Briefing. So I wonder what kind of progress has been made in implementing that, so that other boroughs, for example, will consider similar practice.
I think that's another example of Lambeth going above and beyond in terms of the support they give, the commissioning work, the co-commissioning work they do with us. And she gave an example of that. I'm hoping the work of the new Women's Justice Board will make recommendations in this area to support councils. The key thing, if and we've got one here, the key thing if a council leader was here, all London Council would say is, we're really keen and happy to do this sort of stuff, but there's got to be additional resources for them to do that stuff, because councils have got real challenges with budgets and so forth. So I'm always nervous about putting more pressure on councils without the additional resources to make them follow it through. But Lambeth deserve a huge commendation, as you've given them, for the great work they do in this area.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. No further interventions. Let's move then to the question on net zero in the net zero 2030 in the name of Assembly Member Wilson.
Can I thank the member for his question? I'm not sure, though, who the member's been speaking to, but this isn't my experience or the evidence. The latest polling by Ipsos that I've seen showed 84% of Londoners are concerned about climate change. Polling for More in Common showed 87% of Londoners want the government to move at the same pace or faster to reach net zero. But even if rapid climate action was less popular, which it isn't, it wouldn't change the reality that climate change is accelerating. Thinking we can kick the climate problem into the long grass would be bad for our city and bad for Londoners. Climate change is already impacting our ability to keep Londoners safe. Last year's Climate Resilience Review made clear the risk of flooding, of overheating, of wildfire, all due to catastrophic climate change. We can't forget the horrific wildfires London experienced in 2022 or the flash floods we've seen in recent years across the city. This puts people's lives at risk and impacts homes and livelihoods. To delay taking action on climate change would be to ignore the impact it's having right now, and would be even more costly in the long run. And that's why, for example, we have strong climate policies in the London Plan, so the buildings of the future are resilient and low carbon. New referable developments approved in 2023 should see a 55% reduction in emissions when compared to levels required by national building regulations, and 84% will use a heat pump-led system. So I won't be watering down my target because of pressure from the Reform Party. To do so would let down Londoners. It would also mean we would miss out on the benefits of actions to tackle climate change. Homes that are cheaper to heat and keep cool in the summer. A greener city where air is clean and rivers healthy enough to swim in. Energy supply that is local, secure and clean. And jobs and growth in the green economy, with London leading the world as the climate finance capital of the world. Instead, I'll continue to work with the government, businesses, Londoners and all our stakeholders to build a greener and resilient future for our city.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And you've made it very clear that it remains a very clear priority for you. And to be fair, you have a mandate for that, in much the same way as 10 county councils across England have a mandate now to pursue a different approach. But given that it is such a top priority for you, do you not think that it should be a requirement that the person fronting up your agenda as part of your administration is someone that Londoners can trust? You'll be aware, because I've written to you, that I'm deeply concerned about the press reports about your Deputy Mayor for Environment, Mehdi Coburn, lying about his supposed football career, alleging to have played for Inter Milan, Galatasaray and Real Madrid. Now, you're on the record saying that you don't want liars in office, but we seem to have one in a very key part of your administration. Is it not time for him to do the decent thing and resign?
I think that the member's referring to mistakes somebody made as a teenager. I could probably list 6 things he's done wrong in the last year, let alone when he's a teenager, for which I'm not asking him to resign for. When you look at the progress made since the new Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy became the Deputy Mayor, it's quite remarkable in terms of the plan we've got now to clean up our rivers, and the plan we've got to make our schools greener, saving them money, as well as less carbon emissions. The work he's doing in partnership with the Deputy Mayor for Transport to green our buses, to green our taxis, to increase cycleways as well. The trees we continue to plant, the work we're doing in relation to waste, the work being done in advance of, and I'm sure during London Climate Action Week as well. So I'm incredibly proud of the work the Deputy Mayor is doing, and he's got my full support. More importantly, he's fulfilling the mandate Londoners gave me last May.
I can accept you're proud of what he's doing on your behalf, and I would accept the point about it being just a teenage indiscretion if that's all it was. There are other questions that I think need to be asked, and that's why I'm raising them now. That there are serious questions about some of the things that have been said about his in his adulthood, and there are a number of live online profiles where he refers to working as a scout for both Arsenal and Southampton. I'd like to know if those are genuinely true, because they don't appear on his LinkedIn profile, they don't appear on his profile on the GLA website, and they don't appear on the CV that was submitted to the confirmation hearings panel when we interviewed him for the position of chair of Re London. So I would like, given that Mette, or perhaps Walter Mette, as I like to call him, does have a troubled relationship with the truth in this area, perhaps you could confirm in writing, if needs be, whether those positions were genuinely held and what the nature of them was.
Well, firstly, it's pleasing to see a member of the Reform Party actually here rather than on holiday, and so it's good to see you here. Secondly, my advice to you is spend less time online. It's bad for your health and bad for your eyesight, I'm told.
I spend plenty of time online. I also spend plenty of time knocking on doors, speaking to voters across London, and you'll have seen the polling results that we're getting even here in London, but matching those and the results we had in the country as a whole. But no, there's a clear pattern emerging with Labour administrations. We have a Transport Secretary who lied about her phone collection. We have a Chancellor who lied about her supposed role as an economist, a Business Secretary who lied about his qualification as a solicitor, and it seems a Deputy Mayor who lied about his football career. So my question to Labour members generally, both here in London and in national government, how can we be sure that any of you really are who you say you are?
Well, the chutzpah of somebody who belongs to a party led by Nigel Farage to talk about liars, it's just quite audacious.
Mr Mayor, this is Mayor's question time.
It's just quite audacious.
I'm very happy to swap places, and you can ask me about my party colleagues, but this is Mayor's question time. I'm asking the questions. I've asked that question, and I'd like a quick answer because the time is against me.
I thought somebody who's really proud of being a patriot and claims to understand the heritage of our country would know to sit here, you've got to win an election. And there was one last May, and I won, which gives me the privilege to sit here. I thought he believes in democracy and these great English and British institutions like the GLA.
I look very much forward to the next election in 3 years' time. I'm out of time now. Thank you.
Let's move on then to the next question, which is... sorry.
London's green spaces, Chair.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Sorry, no, apologies. Devolution in London.
Devolution in London, Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Can I thank the member for his question? It was also a pleasure to meet those year 3, 4, 5 and 6 pupils outside from Stanhope. I'm really pleased to be working with a new government that is committed to the principles of devolution and which sees London as an asset to the whole of the UK. There is no doubt that devolution works. Whatever powers have been devolved to us, be that rail devolution or adult skills, we've delivered for Londoners. That's because regional and local leaders know the areas best and are best placed to deliver what their communities need. The public recognises this too with consistent polling showing that people trust local government far more than national government to improve their local area, seeing a more direct relationship between the taxes they pay and the public services they receive. This government understands that, and that's why they've published the English Devolution White Paper with the English Devolution Bill to follow, to give more autonomy and powers to mayors and local leaders. And the member is right, that it's vital we continue to engage Londoners as we make these new proposals a reality. Since becoming mayor, I've made it my priority to communicate with and engage all Londoners in the work we do at City Hall, including those whose voices were previously unheard. I'm proud that since 2016, the GLA's Talk London platform has grown its membership by over 40,000, including more young and black, Asian and minority ethnic Londoners than ever before. In the last 12 months alone, Talk London engaged Londoners in surveys and discussion on rough sleeping, healthy rivers and green spaces, the London Growth Plan, the Police and Crime Plan, the annual budget consultation, Culture in London, Off-Peak Fridays and currently on the next London Plan. Officers in the GLA's community engagement team work across all 32 boroughs to remove barriers, reduce inequalities and give communities a platform to be seen, heard, resourced and more actively engaged in the city's decision-making. From 2019 to 2024, the team has invested £1.92 million in 72 civil society organisations, working to dismantle the inequalities that prevent Londoners from getting heard and engaging with key policy makers. I'll continue to use these platforms alongside social media and other communication channels to ensure Londoners are kept informed on further developments in relation to London's devolution journey. Any help the member can give, or others in the Assembly, will also really help.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. And clearly we heard earlier that London's being incredibly successful on the football pitches and with that success, but it's also successful politically. The government's English devolution paper looks to roll out effectively London's model to other regions across the country. How can we showcase the GLA's success over the previous 25 years to ensure that we have further success going forward?
Well, firstly, I don't think we can stand still. We can't just rely upon the powers given to us by the GLA Act 1999. Whether you're a football team, whether you're a city, whether you're a business, if you stand still, in my view, you go backwards. You've got to carry on moving forward. So I'm really pleased Greater Manchester and West Midlands have got additional powers, and I welcome that. And other regions are coming on board. It's also good to see other parts of the country represented by mayors of different political parties as well, which is good as well, because different parts of the country, there are different parts of political allegiances as well, and there's a different point of view, which is important. We as London, though, need to understand our comparator, and I say this in a respectful way, isn't other parts of the country. It's Paris, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so we're lobbying the government for more powers, using our track record to show we can be trusted with more devolution.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that statement. Part of the devolution will be a new integrated settlement from next financial year. What guarantees have you got from government in terms of making sure that as part of that settlement that we have more control over how that money is spent, and how will that be able to benefit your ability to deliver on the manifesto pledges you have?
Well, firstly, it really isn't a done deal about the integrated settlement. We're still lobbying the government in relation to the reason why this makes sense. I'll be meeting again with members of the government tomorrow, including the Prime Minister, to make this point, with other Metro mayors as well. The good news is the government's given integrated settlement deals to the trailblazers negotiated by the previous government, Greater Manchester and West Midlands. In my view, this provides more financial stability and flexibility. I think we can do really exciting stuff around skills training, around homes and buildings, around things like energy efficiency, but also we can boost our economy as well. So I'm looking forward to those lobbying discussions we're having with the government bearing fruit when it comes to the SR in June.
Thank you very much.
OK, let's then move on to the next question, which is protecting London's green space in the name of Assembly Member Boff.
Can I thank the member for his question? Over the last 9 years, I've helped deliver a greener, more nature-rich city where more Londoners can enjoy healthy, accessible green spaces. My goal is not just to protect existing sites, but to expand access even further. I've already enabled 900 hectares of green space improvement and creation since 2016, equivalent to more than 2,000 football pitches. I've supported the planting of more than 600,000 trees across London, including 2 major woodland creation projects at Enfield Chase and Hainault Forest. And I've helped bring wildlife back to the city through my support for rewilding, which has included the reintroduction of beavers to London for the first time in 400 years. I'll continue to provide opportunities for more Londoners to benefit from green spaces through my Green Roots Fund, which I'm excited to be launching shortly. I'm also working with partners to understand and address the threats to green space. To understand the impact of a changing climate, for example, we're working with researchers from Kew Gardens to identify the types of trees we need to be planting to ensure they remain resilient now and in the future. My London plan includes policies that provide protection for existing valuable green spaces, as well as requiring new development to deliver new green infrastructure. It defines metropolitan open land, protecting strategic spaces which improve Londoners' quality of life by providing space for sports and leisure, heritage value, biodiversity, and the subsequent health benefits that come with those activities. The London Plan also encourages new open space, particularly in areas of deficiency, and the enhancement of existing spaces to provide a wide range of benefits for Londoners. Policies support the protection of natural spaces through the sites of importance for nature conservation and introduce the principle of biodiversity gain to development in London, while promoting proper evaluation of the role of trees and woodlands in the urban environment. My London Plan also introduced the urban greening factor requirements for major developments, ensuring that major developments contribute to the city's green infrastructure goals, including green roofs and walls. Chair, I'll continue to use my planning powers to protect and enhance London's green spaces and to work with partners to find new ways to deliver the green space that Londoners need.
In answer to Assembly Member McCartney's question earlier, you said the reasons, the justification for building on green belt would be if it was of poor quality and badly maintained. Do you recognise that this is an incentive for owners of green belt land who have a lot of money to make out of your plans to remove the protection on green spaces, to reduce the quality of land and to maintain their land as well?
Chair, what I said wasn't that that's the requirement, that's an observation of the green belt. A lot of the green belt is poor quality, a lot of the green belt is poorly maintained, a lot of the green belt is inaccessible to Londoners. That's just a fact based upon my observations.
And what are your plans to improve the quality of that green belt?
Well, firstly, we'll be consulting Londoners, and that consultation ends on the 22nd of June. That will then lead towards the development of a new London plan, and that will set out new policies in relation to the city going forward, including the green belt as well.
Will you, Mr Mayor, visit the site saveourgreenspaces.co.uk to view the case against your plan to build on green spaces in London?
I think it's got to be. I've got to be really careful as the Mayor of London, because a lot of these applications come to me as a quasi-judicial function I have, not to give the impression I've prejudged individual sites and applications for individual
There are no individual
sites
sites mentioned on that website. It's the case against your policy for building on Greenbelt.
So I'd encourage those who run that site to respond to the consultation. I'm quite clear in relation to my view that we should actively explore building on parts of the Greenbelt, good quality, energy efficient, well-designed homes, maximising affordability, good transport connections, but also requiring there to be an increase in biodiversity and requiring accessibility for Londoners to those parts of the Greenbelt that are well-designed and good.
Would you like to prove your allegiance to the green belt in London, which you recently described as London's lungs, by visiting saveourgreenspaces.co.uk and perhaps signing the petition which aims to save the green belt from, well, you?
I praised Ned earlier, former mayoral candidate Lord Bailey, as being somebody who's an advocate of building on the green belt. But also, I've been persuaded by others in relation to the importance of actively exploring building on parts of the green belt. I don't resolve from that. Let me be quite clear in relation to that. And, you know, I'm following the footsteps of other Conservative leaders, from Liz Truss to Boris Johnson, in relation to recognising there it's possible to...
Mr Mayor, that distraction may work on an Assembly member who's been uncritical of the previous mayor, or indeed their own party. It doesn't work on me.
It's also he needs to remember he's not chairing today. He's a member. He just forgets, I think. It's also important to recognise that it's possible for nature and housing to go together. They're not mutually exclusive. I've shown from my track record over the last 9 years, not only have we improved the greenery in London, but we've increased it to the tune of 900 hectares, 2,000 sport pitches. So I think Londoners know my track record on this area.
Assembly Member Giorgio.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Mayor, I hope you and your family are keeping well. Mr Mayor, does low-quality greenbelt include parks and metropolitan open land?
It does not include metropolitan open land. There's a separate legislation to do with MOL, separate from the Greenbelt. I'm sure he's aware. There are some parts of the Greenbelt that are green and pleasant. There are some parts that aren't. None of the parks, from St James's to Hyde Park to Richmond Park, are even being considered in relation to this, because different legislation applies, and they're clearly gorgeous and well used.
So you would then confirm, because you were very specific on metropolitan open land. In fact, your new London plan mentions it 78 times, so I'm not going to quibble on that. You've answered that question. Does low-quality greenbelt include registered parks?
There's a definition. I'll get my office to send it to the member. A definition of what the greenbelt is. That's the legally defined definition. Greenbelt was set up to basically avoid urban sprawl. And so I'll send the member what the definition of the green belt is.
Well, I know exactly what it is, and so therefore, seeing as you won't answer that question, I'll give you a very good case study. Your office and TfL attended Enfield Council's local plan hearings and promoted Trent Park, it's in the name, it's not confusing, which is also within the Greenbelt, to build 10,000 units. Do you endorse that proposal or not?
So I think the member's in danger of making me prejudge an application that may come towards me. I can see the temptation to do so, but he'll be aware. I'm surprised as somebody who sometimes chairs this assembly isn't aware of the rules, but actually it is important to avoid the perception of prejudgment that I don't give a comment on an application that may not come before me.
I won't be specific then. Hypothetically, Mr. Mayor, there may be a park in London which is within the Greenbelt, green, verdant land used by family, is accessible and is open to all Londoners. Hypothetically, would you be in favour of developing on that site?
So the London plan as it stands is quite clear in relation to what the current planning rules are. I'm consulting on an announcement I made a couple of weeks ago. That consultation ends on the 22nd of June. The response to that consultation will help me form my view, which will go into a draft London plan, which we will publish in the first 6 months of next year. Once the new draft London plan is published, that has weight in planning. Up until then, the current London plan stands.
I find it incredibly sad, Mr. Mayor, that Green, Liberal Democrat, Labour and perhaps even some Conservative voters put their trust in you when you said you would protect our parks, protect metropolitan open land, protect our open green spaces and protect the green belt. It's a very easy win for you here today to say anywhere in London that is registered as a park and metropolitan open land will be protected and defended by you. Can you make that guarantee?
I've been quite clear. Chair, we've got no plans to build in any of our gorgeous parks in London. And I appreciate in politics there's mischief making. I get that. I get the knockabout stuff. And actually, I also understand why some people propagate misinformation, disinformation. No one's talking about building on our gorgeous parks.
Then why don't you just say you won't build on Trent Park? It's not complicated. Given what you've just said now, confirm here in front of us all and the public, I will not build on Trent Park.
Well, Chair, I'll deal with the mock anger in a second. He's just mentioned the example by name of the park I can't talk about because there's a planning application.
He sold us out, Chair. No point in wasting my time.
So which
is really sad. Which is really sad. He could have had an easy win today, gotten all of our voters back on board with his agenda, but he hasn't got the courage to do it because he knows he's going to sell us down the river.
We've got mock anger and theatre in the course of 30 seconds. He should probably audition for Stratford-upon-Avon because in the Assembly he's wasted.
Okay. Assembly Member Small-Heath. Sorry, it's my brain. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's just worth reiterating in this debate that only 13% of the green belt is green space that is accessible to Londoners, and nowhere in the Towards a New London Plan consultation does it talk about building on that green space. When it does talk about building on the green belt, it sets out clear stipulations around affordable housing, around infrastructure, and around new or additional green space. So what I'm taking away from it is more housing that's affordable, greater infrastructure connectivity, increased biodiversity and more or additional green space. So I don't see what's not to like. And I think it's very good to see Assembly Member Lord Bailey acknowledge his former comments and back those up once more. He talked about a politician somewhere is going to have to be brave about where we build. I'm glad that you've been brave. And do you share my frustration that we don't have unanimity across the Assembly around support over these proposals to house Londoners?
Well, I think the member's in danger of being far too rational. Look, the reason why there's this theatre is Reform are now the official opposition. Now, there's a problem for them because they've been overtaken by Reform, and they're fighting for these voters who have deserted them to go to Reform, which is why you have the mock anger and the theatre from the chap over there. I'm quite clear. I'm not going to resile from taking tough decisions for the benefit of our city. And you're right to remind us that actually only 13% of the green belt is accessible from Londoners in terms of being green and open access. I was given an example by another member, I won't name him, outside, who told me about a piece of green belt near where he lives, which is not accessible, and which people are campaigning about, and where you could build some nice, decent housing as well. And we've got to grasp the challenge our city faces, because your generation of Londoners will never be able to afford to rent in our city, let alone buy, unless we increase the supply of housing. But we are attaching conditions in relation to that housing on some parts of the green belt. Well-designed, energy efficient, good connections to transport, maximising affordability, increasing biodiversity, with access for Londoners to those parts of good quality green land.
Assembly Member Turrell.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Mayor, last year you told this Assembly that London's green belt is as important today as it always has been. All that's changed since then is that Labour are now in government, so Londoners are left wondering, are you a liar or a lapdog?
You shouldn't be.
There is a housing crisis in London. Someone is going to have to be brave and start talking about the green belt. Not my words, but the words of a respected, loved, collegiate, handsome member of the Conservative Party. You know what, Chair? I agree with Sean.
The Conservatives are now out of time. Let's move on.
On to Assembly Member Small-Edwards.
Sorry, yes, Assembly Member Small-Edwards. The question is ensuring resilience in London's energy and infrastructure.
Can I thank the member for his question? My Future London plan is part of a wider strategy that puts London at the forefront of energy infrastructure planning in the UK, ensuring London has the resilient energy infrastructure needed to power growth while reducing our emissions. The next London plan will help ensure that energy infrastructure keeps pace with London's growth. The Towards a New London document that I launched recently outlines some of the key issues the next plan will need to consider, such as how we manage the energy needs of a major energy major users like data centres. In parallel to this, my infrastructure coordination service focuses on ensuring that existing infrastructure is used as efficiently as possible and that new infrastructure is well planned for. This includes developing local area energy plans which map out future growth alongside the low-carbon technologies needed to reach net zero. Alongside this, in partnership with London Councils, I've commissioned a refresh of the London Infrastructure Framework. The framework will set out the infrastructure needed to unlock sustainable, climate-resilient economic and housing growth in the capital. It will sit alongside the London Growth Plan, the next London Plan, and align with the government's 10-year infrastructure strategy. It will also review the resilience of London's infrastructure and make recommendations about how we can ensure the growth opportunities of tomorrow are not held back by London's ageing infrastructure. Improving energy efficiency and boosting local electricity generation and storage, especially in people's homes and business, are a vital part of the jigsaw in planning for resilient energy infrastructure for London. For example, my Warmer Homes London programme retrofits homes at scale, helping to reduce electricity demand.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Last week, commuters on several branches of the Tube network experienced a power outage. Can you update us on your actions that you are taking to strengthen energy infrastructure, to support critical development, and also to ensure the safety of the existing and future network?
Yeah, this is a question that's raised by Senator Baker as well earlier on. It's an issue for which I want to apologise for the consequences that London has suffered. So, on the 12th of May, as I said, part of the network were disrupted by this issue. We understand this related to UK Power Network and National Grid assets. I've asked my infrastructure team to incorporate consideration of resilience of London's infrastructure and electricity assets as part of the work they're doing when they developed the London Infrastructure Framework. We've got to make sure at the same time, as I said to Senator Baker, we understand what caused this, learn lessons about, God forbid that happens in the future, but secondly, to avoid this happening again. And that's one of the reasons why it will go into the work done by the team towards the 2025 London Infrastructure Framework.
Thank you. And on a related issue, how is the GLA working with the government, the boroughs and energy providers to ensure that London's grid has sufficient energy capacity to meet the future housing, infrastructure and commercial demands, especially given projected increase in things like electric vehicles, heat pumps and the very energy-intensive data centres?
Well, Chair, can I thank the member for raising actually a really important point in relation to the confidence developers have businesses have in relation to the supply of energy going forward, electricity going forward. I was recently at a London Council's meeting where leaders of councils in the west of London were really concerned about this issue, and indeed the centre and west as well. So we've already managed to, working with energy providers, unlock future energy supply, which has unlocked 11,000 homes, really important. We're working with the regulators, we're working with the network operators, we're working with the councils, we're working with the government to make sure we can give confidence to businesses, councils, developers going forward. I mentioned in my answer the energy used by data centres. Think about heat networks, think about the need for new energy systems. And so we're doing this work as part of resilience planning, but also so we can give confidence in terms of some of the ideas set out in the London Growth Plan and the prospectus published by Opportunity London.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Compliant, will the Assembly agree to suspend Standing Orders 2.9b in order to allow the remaining business on the agenda to be completed? Thank you very much. The next question we have is the VORG impact on young people, in the name of Assembly Member Harmad.
Can I thank the member for this question? I'm determined to tackle all forms of violence against women and girls and welcome the role of the Netflix show Adolescence in sparking national conversations about the pernicious influence of those who preach misogyny online. The solution to tackling VORG lies in changing the harmful attitudes and behaviours of men and boys, which is why I've overseen a record investment of £233 million into tackling VORG and its root causes. I'll continue through my refreshed VORG strategy to prioritise prevention and partnership working with communities to address underlying drivers. This includes a wide range of dedicated programmes to support perpetrators of domestic abuse and stalking to change their attitudes and behaviours and prevent further offending. Our multi-award-winning Have a Word and Say Mate to a Mate campaign have proven to empower people to call out unacceptable behaviour towards women, with over 80% of young men who saw Have a Word saying they would now call out misogynistic behaviour if they saw it. We've also invested over £1 million to develop a VORG Prevention Schools toolkit to equip primary and secondary school teachers to educate children about healthy and respectful attitudes and relationships. The Violence Reduction Unit is also delivering a series of targeted interventions in schools and communities, and our £3.9 million Shared Endeavour Fund is directly countering harmful ideologies, with over 2,500 young Londoners provided a safe space to explore online dangers, including extremism and harmful male influences, through the Communities Countering Misogyny project. There's, of course, still more to do, and it's good to have a government committed to this agenda.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And as the mother of two young women, can I tell you how appreciative they are of the actions that you've been taking? Mr Mayor, how do you plan on working with tech platforms and educators to counter the myriad of misogynistic influences that young people can be inundated with?
So the member raises a really important issue in relation to the responsibility, I think, that social media companies, those that run tech platforms, have. Obviously, there's those that provide the content, and there's regulation. I don't think regulation is kept abreast of the developments in innovation, the algorithms, so forth and so forth. So I think what's really important is the tech platforms understand they've got responsibility in relation to this area. The Online Safety Act is a start. I think that's a floor, not a ceiling. We've got a Secretary of State who gets this, and Peter Cole spends a lot of time speaking to tech platforms, so they understand their responsibility, but also understanding it's not all bad. A lot of the stuff tech platforms do is wonderful, and many of us are on these platforms. And I'm hoping that the work we've done in the past with them to do with youth violence, we've got great relationships with them, will make a difference. We've also got a role to play. So we've spent some money training up youth practitioners who work with young people, so they've got the confidence and the skills to work with young people so they know the dangers of stuff online as well. That resilience is really important in young people. But having youth practitioners who can teach them that, but spot this stuff is really important as well. What are the red flags? How can we help?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Like me, you've seen some of the disgusting misogynistic, racist, homophobic and disableist WhatsApp posts by police officers in the past, and I'm sure that, like me,
you welcome the new powers given to police services to deal with vetting, or the powers that will be given. Can you confirm that this means we can remove officers who don't pass vetting requirements from the meds?
It's worth reminding ourselves of specific examples. The case in Charing Cross, Operation Houghton. I was criticised for calling that out. I was criticised for holding the previous commissioner to account. I was criticised, and we know who criticised me, criticised for saying that's unacceptable in the Met Police Service and action should be taken. Well, we've got the current commissioner who understands the importance of this as an issue, who wants to turn the police service into an anti-racist organisation, changing the culture in the police service, but also with me lobbying the government about the importance of changing the regulations so it's possible to get rid of bad officers, but also change the culture in the police service. And the great news is, because of the work of the current commissioner and many others, I've been lobbying for some time, the Vetting Regulations 2025, which have been laid before Parliament, will mean there are more stringent requirements on those who want to be a police officer, but also it'll be easier for us to get rid of police officers who, frankly speaking, should never have been given a uniform in the first place. I want to give credit to the Home Secretary. Yvette Cooper's moved much more quicker on this than previous Home Secretaries, and I'm hoping that will lead to, across the country, us making sure that people who aren't fit to have a warrant card never get one.
And we look forward to that, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
OK, let's move on to the next question then on shoplifting in the name of Assembly Member Irani.
Can I thank the member for his question? I welcome the measures in the Crime and Policing Bill, which includes a new offence of assaulting a retail worker and reverses the previous government's effective decriminalisation of what it deemed low-value shoplifting of items under £200. In recognition of the growing concern around retail crime, the Met Police Service has a retail crime strategy co-developed with businesses, and they also convened the London Retail Harm Reduction Partnership, which includes the leading retailers as members. The purpose of the group is to identify strategic actions to drive down retail crime and for the Met Police Service to better work with businesses. The Met Police Service have also created volume crime teams in basic command units to focus on this issue and continues to deliver Operation Retail, a programme of work to improve the response to retail crime, including streamlining retail crime reporting and using facial recognition technology to identify prolific offenders. The Mayor's Office of Policing and Crime also meet with business improvement districts across London to ensure they're working in partnership with the MPS and are doing all they can to reduce the levels of retail crime and violence against shop workers. After years of underfunding by the previous government, I welcome the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee to have 13,000 additional police officers in dedicated neighbourhood policing roles nationally to help tackle and prevent crime in our high streets and town centres. The MPS has also bolstered town centre teams with 500 officers as part of its commitment to strengthen local policing. This work in town centres will benefit not just those who live nearby, but those who visit, work and travel through our town centres.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You mentioned the previous Conservative government creating that offence of low-value shoplifting, which has led to an explosion in the offence. Just in Harrow, one of the boroughs that I represent, the published 2024 data shows a 93% increase in shoplifting. And as a local constituency member, I can point to local visits to Pinner, to South Harrow with the local MP, Gareth Thomas, and meeting with shop staff and hearing about the danger that they frequently find themselves in. Do you join me in supporting the government's intention to introduce new protections for shop workers?
Well, can I just explain the consequences of this policy by the previous government? So if you're a shopkeeper or somebody who works in a shop and somebody's shoplifting and the value of the item is less than £200, you're not going to report it to the police because you know, because of the previous government's policy, the police won't take any action. When you confront the criminal, when you confront the shoplifter, you can face possible assault. And so I want to commend USDOR, the trade union, for their campaign on this issue for some time to change the law. But also, I'm hoping that retailers now have the confidence to report this to the police. I've seen examples around the city where they're doing that. The police will take action to make sure these criminals are caught, prosecuted and action taken. It's really important also the judges have the powers to give increased sentences for those that assault our shop workers.
Right, and just quoting some of those percentage increases in Harrow and the work that you said the Met is doing going forward on this issue, can you commit to making sure that someone from the relevant team meets with me to see what can be done in Harrow specifically.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to arrange for the member to meet, not just the BCU team, but also the team that does work on retail crime, about some of the work that's happening in other parts of the city which may be able to be replicated in Harrow. For example, use of facial recognition in terms of those that are caught on the shop's CCTV to cross-check and make arrests going forward.
Thank you. The same crime data set for last year shows that MOPAC and the Met are finding success in tackling violent crime with injury, which is down by 15%. However, this is still an issue that impacts families and communities, and sadly a life was lost in Kingsbury this week. My thoughts are with the family and friends of Ali Faris Mohammed, who tragically died this week. Mr Mayor, it's been far too easy to buy knives, and how will the government finally coming forward to ban zombie knives assist in your efforts to tackle violent crime?
Well, I'm really pleased the member mentioned somebody who's lost their life, because when we talk about this issue, we're talking about people, bereaved families who will never be the same again, and victims of crime. You know, are really impacted when they're the victim of crime, even when it's not serious as a homicide. And it's really important to understand we've got to deal with the causes of crime. Crime is not inevitable, it's preventable, but also the consequences as well. I've been on record for the last 9 years calling for a ban on machetes, on zombie knives, on ninja swords. What justification can there be to own a machete in London, a zombie knife, a ninja sword? Unlike previous Home Secretaries, this Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has now banned machetes and zombie knives. From August, ninja swords will be banned, and it's really important, also at the same time as changing the law, action has been taken against those retailers, shops, but also online, who sell these weapons to Londoners or those across the country.
This weekend gone, I just joined a walk which was about raising awareness about knife crime, and we went to sites and locations where Brent Council had worked with the Raheem Sterling Foundation to install knife bins. How important are initiatives like this to get rid of weapons off our streets?
I'm really pleased the Home Office is supporting this initiative, and Brent Council's got a great record in terms of working with young people, but also in terms of enforcement as well. I visited a mines project in Brent not too long ago. Look, I think they've got their role. Amnesties have a role to play, but by itself it's not enough, clearly. The government doesn't think it's enough by itself, but I'm really pleased the Council's working with you to support this initiative, because you know one knife taken off our streets is a potential life being saved, because that knife could have been used in a homicide. So, I applaud the work that the Brent Council's doing in this area, and also the work of the Home Office in promoting this.
Thank you.
OK, let's move on to a question on TfL advertising policy in the name of Assemblymember Russell.
Thanks for the question. In this city, I'm proud that we celebrate and embrace people of all backgrounds, and ensuring inclusivity for all is one of my core values as Mayor of London. TfL conducts all its business and revenue-generating activities as efficiently as possible and to the highest ethical standards, while ensuring compliance with its legal obligations. Advertising space across TfL is managed by its media partners, who hold the rights to carry out advertising on the estate under commercial agreements. As the member is aware, income generated from commercial advertising is vital to fund TfL's operations and enable TfL to continue to run a safe, inclusive and reliable transport network for London. And there are comprehensive rules around what can and cannot run across the network. Adverts are required to adhere to the Advertising Standards Authority's advertising codes, which cover all advertising in the UK. The TfL advertising policy broadly follows the Advertising Standards Authority's advertising codes. TfL works closely with the ASA and its sister organisation, the Committee for Advertising Practice, which writes the national advertising codes. The advertising codes are the most consistent way to improve advertising standards, ensuring they apply to all advertising. It's worth saying that the advertising codes apply in London on all advertising estates, including TfL's and that owned by Network Rail, the London boroughs and private landlords. However, TfL has long been leading the way on advertising policy, and its advertising policy goes further than the ASA codes in some areas, for example, around body image and the food and non-alcoholic drinks that are high in fat, salt and sugar. All advertisements on the TfL network are reviewed on a case-by-case basis against the TfL advertising policy, so it can deliver a consistent approach and ensure advertising displayed is inclusive and suitable for TfL's diverse customers. TfL's advertising policy also reflects its obligations under the Public Sector Equality Duty and the Equality Act 2010, and TfL has regard to those obligations in its application of the policy. TfL and its media partners take their responsibilities very seriously. The work's also monitored by the Advertising Steering Group, which provides strategic advice and guidance to TfL on the application of its advertising policy. And the group's chaired by the Deputy Minister for Transport, Seb Dance, and is composed of a range of stakeholder and industry representatives.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to focus on a recent proposal for wraparound digital advertising, and I've been contacted by loads of neurodiverse Londoners who are concerned about the installation of this wraparound advertising. They think it'll make the transport network a no-go area for neurodivergent individuals. They're worried for people who are living with epilepsy. They're worried about the background noise from these wraparound adverts affecting deaf or people who are hard of hearing. They're worried about the loud noises, flashing images, and someone whose wife has benign brain tumours describes having to turn away when a train pulls in to a station because movement makes her feel dizzy and unstable. So these are examples of the impact that Londoners have written to me of the impact of these adverts. So can you confirm that TfL is going to work with Londoners with lived experience of neurodiversity, taking a pan-impairment approach before they make any decision on bringing in wraparound digital advertising that potentially risk making parts of London's tube network massively inaccessible?
Well, Chair, can I thank the member for letting me know in advance of the concern she had? So I've looked into the matter she raises. Just to reassure her, these digital wraps are still in early development and will be subject to testing and assessment before they're introduced on the network. A full equality impact assessment will, of course, be carried out. But she raises specific points. Just to reassure her, in addition to, of course, the deaf and disabled organisations being consulted, TfL will engage with specialists through its Inclusive Design Centre for Excellence and will, of course, comply with the Design for the Mind, Neurodiversity and the Built Environment Guide, which includes specifically sensory considerations. She's raised really important points which are live to me, and I'll make sure that TfL considers them when it comes to not just this, but any plans going forward.
Thank you very much.
OK, we move on to the question on the Holly Lodge Police Station in the name of Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank the member for his question. The current Commissioner and I are committed to reforming and modernising the Met Police Service, and a key part of that is fixing the foundations by ensuring officers have the right resources, including police stations and patrol bases, to do the best job they can. However, the overwhelming majority of MPS funding comes from the government, and unfortunately the previous government chronically underfunded the Met Police Service for years, making cuts to policing in London that in real terms were equivalent to more than £1.1 billion. I've been pulling every lever I have at my disposal to support policing in London, raising the precept by the maximum allowed each year and providing business rates to plug the funding gaps. This has been consistently opposed by some in the Assembly. I've more than doubled City Hall funding to the Met Police Service, an increase of 105% since I became Mayor. The proportion of the MPS budget funded by City Hall has increased from 19% when I was first elected to 25% in the 25-26 budget. But despite the fact that I've repeatedly stepped in to fill the financial gap by invested record amounts from City Hall to support the police has been left in an extremely difficult financial position. And this has led to them having to make some really tough choices, including, unfortunately, the need to disband the Royal Parks Police Unit. Any impact of disbanding the Royal Parks Police on the Met Police Service estate, including any specific decision on Holly Lodge Police Station, will be outlined in a new estate strategy. MOPEC will have oversight and scrutiny of any proposals, but ultimately decisions around the estate are informed by the Met Police Service's operational requirements. I'll continue to support the Met Police Service in maintaining an estate that will help strengthen neighbourhood policing and building trust and confidence with Londoners. I've been clear that I see neighbourhood policing as the bedrock of community confidence, trust and safety in London, and this is why fresh funding from the new government and City Hall will be used to fund police officers, police staff and the equipment they need to carry out their roles. And I'll continue to work with the government and the Met Police Service ahead of the forthcoming spending review to ensure the Met Police Service gets the sustainable funding it needs to help us build a safer London for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the points which was raised yesterday at the Police and Crime Committee was that there have been 14 new officers allocated to the central BCUs adjacent to the central parks with 3 coordinators, but nothing is yet planned for the Greater London parks, Bushey, Richmond and Greenwich. One suggestion which has been made, and you mentioned you're keen on all good ideas today, is to create individual new wards within the BCU structure, which would allow policing to continue within the parks, but get rid of the hierarchy, the structure of the OCU. If I write to you with outlined position, would you be willing to consider that? And if you support it, would you make that recommendation to the Metropolitan Police Commissioner?
Chair, firstly, can I just put on record my gratitude to the Mayor has been assiduous in raising this issue and bringing it to my attention. I'm more than happy to not just look at the proposal he has, but to make sure, if I agree with it, I advocate for that with the Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Also, yesterday, one of the concerns which was raised was that the emerging estate strategy, which you just mentioned, the Deputy Mayor for Policing, after repeated questioning, said that she's asked week after week after week for some considerable time to have sight of the emerging estate strategy. A, have you seen it? And B, would you be able to intervene on behalf of the Deputy Mayor to ensure that she gets sight of it? Because part of her job is to ensure the correct oversight of the Met and to ensure that budgetary requirements which go along with the capital programme are given full oversight. And at the moment, it seems that she's been prevented from doing her job by lack of sight of the estate strategy.
Thanks, Chair. Can I thank the member for his question? I don't think it's quite as the member presents it. So I can understand, and I think the police are right, to work on drafts which are tested within the Met Police Service before they come to the Mayor's Office for Police and Crime. Sometimes they share that work in progress with MOPAC officers, and I think they've done so in relation to previous iterations of a draft estates strategy. That draft estate strategy is tested by Met Police officers. It goes to a management board. It's probably changed again by the management board. And there are iterations shared with MOPAC officers. I've not seen a draft estate strategy, nor would I expect to do so. I do know there was in the past a draft estate strategy which was, frankly speaking, not affordable, which is why it would have been premature to bring it to me, because the MPS themselves did the homework and worked out it couldn't be afforded. So rather than wasting time, effort and energy by bringing it to me, they then have decided to amend that draft estates strategy. The reason why I smiled when you mentioned estate strategy is because I've heard the frustration of members of the Assembly, council leaders, members of Parliament in relation to the delay in the estate strategy. But again, I can understand why the Commissioner doesn't want to present an estate strategy that could change if he gets more resources and can change, for example, where premises are for officers to be located, patrols to be based, or police stations for the public.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason why there is the urgency is that on the 7th of January, Adrian Scott, who's the Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer for the MPS, promised that we would have the estate strategy this quarter, by the end of July. And therefore, in order for the Deputy Mayor to do her job properly, I would suggest that she needs to have sight of it as a matter of urgency.
I mean, the issue is, I mean, the Met Police were given, £320 million they didn't expect for 25-26. I think they're hopeful that my lobbying pays off with the SR in June, and that's why I suspect there's been a delay. But I can chase this up, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And the Lib Dems are now out of time. Let's move on. Next one is Thames Water Bills, Assembly Member Polanski.
Can I thank the member for his question? I've no doubt that the public have lost confidence in the water companies. That includes Thames Water, who have been taking Londoners for a ride for far too long. Londoners I meet continue to raise concerns about Thames Water and the performance of the water sector in general. The sustained underinvestment in vital infrastructure improvements, the number of pollution incidents, the high levels of borrowing, and the servicing of spiralling debts, whilst also providing big returns for investors. This is simply not good enough. I have no formal powers to set water bills, nor powers on how water companies spend their income. That is the role of Ofwat and the government. But I do support the recent strengthening of regulations and the water industry review kick-started by this government, which has been led by Sir John Cunliffe. This review must identify and recommend a simpler and more transparent approach to the economic regulation of water companies while delivering the improvements Londoners expect to see. The cost of water and the impact of climate change typically affect the most vulnerable and those in the lowest incomes most, and the rising costs of fixing the failing water sector are ultimately paid for by customers. Regulation must therefore ensure water services are affordable for all and the most deprived are supported. Whilst I don't have the powers or resources to do this on my own, I'm committed to doing what I can to improve the sector. In addition to regular engagement with Thames Water, in March I convened a roundtable, bringing together partners including Thames Water, to commit to working together to develop a plan to transform our rivers over the next 10 years. At this roundtable, Thames Water committed to £1.8 billion of additional investment, and my team's working with them on priorities for spending this money. My office also recently met again with Thames Water and with Ofwat to make the case for Londoners. A clearer and more transparent regulatory structure is needed that addresses issues such as leaks, over-abstraction, flooding and the sewer overflows while protecting the health of our waterways. The sector must develop the skills and capacity to deliver their commitments and rebuild public trust. I'll continue to work closely with the government, Ofwat, water companies and the Environment Agency to ensure the voice of Londoners is represented in reshaping the water sector.
Thank you very much. And good to hear you saying that Thames Water are taking Londoners for a ride, because that indeed is true. I suppose in this conversation I want to find out what you're going to do about that. So we know that bills are hitting people right now with an increase of 40%. The only thing higher than that is sewage discharges, which are increasing by 50%. Now, I've been looking around the world at how other cities do it, and Paris brought water companies into public ownership. That reduced bills. And in fact, in Berlin, they had a referendum to bring them back into the city authorities' control. Do you think you should have a place on the board of Thames Water?
The answer is if that position was followed by powers. There's no point just being a token person sitting on the board. The issue is powers in relation to what decisions Thames make. And the big challenge there is with Thames Water is a lack of resources being spent in the right places, but customers being invoiced for the money being spent. And so the short answer is, of course, I want the Mayor of London to have more powers, but not simply tokenism and not simply performative.
So I think this might be where the answer is slightly out of date, because we've had the Water Act in the last year, which gives the powers to Ofwat to change the governance arrangements. So using your platform as Mayor of London, in fact, right here, you could call on Ofwat to say, actually, there should be more public accountability and transparency on that board. And actually, as Mayor of London, you should have a seat at the table.
Be careful that more power doesn't lead to more liabilities. And when I see the liabilities Thames Water have, I'm quite keen to make sure taxpayers and the GLA, by extension, aren't lumbered with those liabilities. We already have access to the Chief Executive, Ofwat, members of the board, whether it's chair or Chief Executive, as and when we need to do so. I mentioned a moment ago the recent meeting we had with both Thames Water and Ofwat, separate to the roundtable we had with them. So if there's additionality from being on the board, that's fine. What I'm not in favour of is additional liability.
Well, I think that's a strange argument, because it's a fair value argument, which essentially says that nationalising Thames Water should cost nothing, because essentially the investors say this is worth nothing at this point because of how badly run down it's been. Being on the board does not mean you need to accept liability. That would be about making sure there's a voice for Londoners and bill payers, preferably, on that board. So is it something you'd write to Steve Reed to request?
No. I'm quite clear in relation to the access we have to Thames Water, but also the cost of nationalising Thames Water. It may be the case anyway, because of the special administration regime kicking in. The taxpayers lumbered with some of this. I use the word lumbered deliberately, because I've seen some of the cost involved in relation to making do some of the errors made in the past. I've got confidence, not just in the Secretary of State, but also how, with the changes that has been suggested, we'll see some difference. I'll give two examples just in the recent past as a consequence of government action. Record numbers of criminal prosecutions being brought against water companies, and bonuses being stopped, being paid to executives. That wasn't the case.
Yet bills are still going up and sewage is still going in the water. Where is the urgency on this? We've seen with steel that the government moved to nationalisation and the conversation far too late. And actually, as Mayor of London, the person who represents Londoners, who bills are going up and the service is not getting better, seems to be shrugging your shoulders. And where is your leadership? Where is the actual action on this to say Thames Water should go into public ownership?
Well, I think we're in danger of seeing Mayor's Question Time used as a platform for a leadership contest, and I wish him the best of luck.
You're the Mayor of London already, as far as I know. You should be leading Londoners.
I wish him the best of luck.
Thank you.
In his leadership contest. And I'm afraid we'll see, Chair, more and more issues that are outside my...
this sounds like dodging the question. Thank you, Chair.
So the member mentioned nationalising steel. I'm not sure the relevance that has to my powers in the GLA Act.
It's about not using the powers that Ofwat have that you could be calling for.
Greens are now out of time.
Right.
Fine. Let's move on to The next question, digital exclusion in the name of Assembly Member Baker.
Can I thank the member for this question? I think this is in my powers, Chair. Ensuring the transport network is accessible for all is a key priority, and both TfL and I are committed to addressing barriers that prevent people from accessing transport. The logged out report explains that technology can make travelling on public transport difficult for people who are digitally excluded or disadvantaged. TfL has recently met with London Travel Watch to discuss the report and how they can work together on its recommendations. Some of the concerns set out in the report are already being addressed through TfL's high standard of customer care. They have an excellent travel mentoring scheme, highly trained staff at stations, and accessible non-digital information available. And TfL is already making progress through the programme of work set out in the Equity in Motion policy. This is TfL's strategy for creating a fair, accessible and inclusive network and playing its part in my vision for a fairer London for everyone. For people without bank accounts, fixed addresses, smartphones or internet access, the ability to pay with cash is still available, and I want to maintain the acceptance of cash across the TfL network where possible. TfL is also reviewing how best to target those who are digitally excluded or disadvantaged to ensure they understand the discounts and concessions they might be entitled to. In addition, TfL has established its Inclusive Design Centre for Excellence and is improving its approach to stakeholder engagement. This will ensure the experiences of digitally excluded Londoners are reflected throughout projects and no one is excluded from the network.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor, for that comprehensive answer. I think this is a really, really important report, so I'd like to ask you about a couple of specific aspects of digital exclusion. You mentioned continuing to accept cash on the network. That's really positive, but a tube journey in Zone 1 costs £2.90 in the peak, pay as you go, but £7 if you're using cash and a paper ticket. That feels really excessive. Will you agree to have a look at the cost of paper tickets?
Well, a very, very, very small number of people still use cash, and those that do tend to be from outside London. And the reason for the difference is because of the additional cost involved in terms of those who pay cash fares versus those that have contactless or Oyster cards as well. And so to reduce the cost of cash fares would mean the money coming from elsewhere. This policy has been in place since 2003, and I think we've got to be cognizant of an unintended consequence of what the member is suggesting. TfL have looked at this when it comes to fares every year when they review their fares, and so it's not something I can undertake to do.
OK, I mean, I think that's a little bit disappointing because if it's that few, if there are very, very few cash fares, then the impact would actually not be a huge amount in terms of cash overall. But I do also want to ask about the provision of non-digital information. You did mention it, but it's not the impression that I'm getting from people travelling around the network that there is easy non-digital information available. And I'm concerned that a digital-first approach is being used to save money. Specifically, an example is the removal of first and last tube times on posters on the network and replacement of a QR code. Obviously, that would impact people who are digitally excluded, but also, God forbid, a passenger is trying to get home late at night with their phone out of battery, something that I may have used to encounter very often, less so these days. Do you have concerns about unintended consequences of the removal of non-digital information?
Well, firstly, I don't apologise for trying to move more and more stuff digital. That's an ambitious aim we have, and so we should continue to try and improve our digital offer. And so I also use the tube like the member does as well, and I regularly see whiteboards being used to display additional information that may not be accessible to commuters. We'll carry and review that to make sure we have whiteboards available for customers. But any change we do is done to improve the service that commuters receive, and so we'll carry on trying to improve the service that commuters receive. And actually, digital has led to a much enhanced service to commuters than was in the past. And actually, across the country, many transport authorities are looking at TfL to see how they can emulate some of our success.
I think the digital information is fantastic. I just don't think it should lead to the removal of other forms of information, to be honest. But on to something a bit more positive, and briefly back to football. As we've not mentioned the success of the giants of East London, Leyton Orient, yet. We've mentioned everyone else, but not Leyton Orient. And would you like to congratulate them on beating Stockport County to reach the League One playoff final in another stunning victory for London over the North West?
I think, Chair, we're in danger of a Assembly Member Best and Assembly Member Baker having a mutual loving of Leyton Orient. Can I just say, can I just apologise to any football club in London, whether you're under 10s, under 15s, amateur, professional, men's, women's, boys, girls. If I've not mentioned you and you've been successful, congratulations to Leyton Orient, and I'm really pleased that both Assembly Member Best and Assembly Member Baker have given me the opportunity to congratulate them. Well done.
Thanks very much. Back to you, Chair.
OK, we'll move on to the next question in the name of Assembly Member Desai. Risk of wildfires.
Can I thank the member for his question? I am concerned. Unlike members of the Conservative Party and the Reform Party, I've not got my head in the sand about the very real impacts of climate change and the increased likelihood of wildfires like those we saw in 2022. And this spring is already one of the driest on records, running the risk of wildfires in London and across the country as we approach the summer. Not only are these fires dangerous for local communities, but extremely hot conditions result in significant demands and safety risks on the firefighters responding on the ground. The London Fire Brigade is adapting its response to meet this change in risk, which is reflected in the Community Risk Management Plan and individual borough risk management plans. I'll continue to support LFB as it delivers that plan and makes sustained improvements. Thanks to record serial funding and investment, the Fire Brigade has made significant investment into its training, operational response and equipment to help reduce, prepare for and respond to extreme weather events. New firefighting equipment that has been introduced includes the Holy Hose and continuing a pilot of new 4x4 vehicles, which City Hall helped to fund as part of my £40 million transformation fund. The LFB works closely with the Met Office and the wider London Partnership as part of its preparedness and an escalation framework. When an extreme weather warning is forecast, LFB allocates resources across London in preparation for it. And the LFB is also carrying out a summer preparedness information campaign to inform the public about seasonal risks and how to protect themselves from them, including wildfires.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I believe that as far as possible, it's always good to bring the experience of people on the front line to our debates in this chamber. So in preparing for this afternoon session, I liaised with Rainham Councillor Trevor McKeever, who spent 30 years as a firefighter and has dealt with wildfires in the past. He tells me that although he believes London Fire Brigade have robust operational plans for such fires, he's concerned about the number of firefighters, crew riding these fire appliances, because he believes that it affects the operational efficiency. Will you look into this?
More than happy to pass on those comments to the London Fire Brigade, and I know sitting next to him is somebody with huge experience. I'll pass it on.
Yeah. Mr. Betts, so what mechanisms are there in place to ensure that landowners, including local authorities and the royal parks, implement the London Fire Brigade recommendations following the events of 2022 in terms of land management and fire breaks? Both Trevor and the local Member of Parliament for Dagenham and Rainham, but we had wildfires in 2022, Margaret Mullane, who also liaised with it preparing for this debate, for this session. They both feel that where land is not managed through effective fire breaks, this can lead to a rapid fire spread.
This is a live concern. We've got real live examples of poorly managed land, not properly looked after, the right steps not being taken, leading to fires that can be really dangerous. And it's really important that to reassure the member that the fire service is working really closely with boroughs who know their communities the best, to make sure all landowners, but also residents, know how to prepare for the summer and what action to take if, God forbid, there is a wildfire that obviously begins small by definition and then grows very quickly. Unfortunately, the fire brigade can't themselves go and visit every single landowner in London. What they can do is make sure the information is available. Members of the London Assembly, members of Parliament, councillors, councils and others can also support the fire brigade in making sure landowners know their responsibilities.
And finally, Mr. Mayor, Councillor McKeever also advises me that there needs to be a greater campaign on education, which I know that the London Fire Brigade are doing, but a greater emphasis on educating the members of the public regarding their responsibilities to alleviate summer wildfires.
I think generally speaking, we've got to do a better job of public education. Because in the past we've not had to address this problem, we don't understand that London has wildfires because of the summer's being hotter. There are things we can do to help the fire brigade. The fire brigade's got a summer information campaign. Members here can amplify those messaging. By the way, it's not just wildfires. I'm also worried when there's hot weather, people jumping into deep water. The shock of the cold can be an issue, but also drowning caused by the people not being good swimmers. So a number of issues that the fire service is doing in terms of raising awareness as we approach summer. And that key messaging also is things like, don't use a disposable barbecue when it's been dry for the last 7 weeks, temperatures north of 30 degrees. Don't throw your cigarette butt on grass and so forth. So you'll see more of that from the London Fire Brigade, but we can also assist the fire brigade in raising awareness of these issues.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh, well, I think members will be pleased to hear that this is now the end, coming towards the end of our session. So if I can formally say... sorry. Oh. Apologies. Yep.
Mr Mayor, unfortunately the Conservatives appear to have wasted a lot of time this morning arguing that we should both save the green belt and build all over it. And in all that confusion, because they don't appear to know what their own policies are on these matters, we've lost an interesting question from Assembly Member Turrell, which is about why Londoners can't add an Oyster card to their virtual wallets. So I'd like to ask you, why can't we do that yet? Is that something that TfL are thinking of bringing in at any time?
We can't take someone else's question on this one. We will return
that's a
to
shame.
it in the future.
That's a shame, because that was a useful question amongst all that garbage that we heard before.
A nice try, but not. So let's, as we move to the end of this session, let's form, in an unbiased way, but I've got to say this just in case I'm accused of this. Thank you to the Mayor for your answers to this session, because that's been done for many years. But also in that sense, can I ask the Assembly to agree the motion which is set out on the agenda in my name, which is that this Assembly notes and answers to the questions asked. Can we move to item 5, which is future meetings of the Assembly? Can I ask the Assembly to agree to use the 5th of June 2025 plenary meeting principally to hold a question and answer session on the Mayor's health inequality strategy with invited guests? Item 6, date of the next meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the London Assembly will be the plenary meeting, which will take place at 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 5th of June on 2025 in the Chamber at City Hall. Item 7, any other business that the Chair considers urgent? There is no urgent business requiring consideration, but can I ask the members of the Fire Committee to stay behind, because I believe you have some deliberations to make. Thank you very much, Assembly members, for your attendance.
Well done.
Thank you, Chair.
This is the broadcast from City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority. Please stand by.